Sounds great. I like to start on time. So let's go ahead. You've all had a chance to read the meeting etiquette. That's going to follow throughout. So every time we meet, I would like to make sure that you've got yourself muted, make sure your video is off, make sure that your name is displaying correctly. If possible, please do have a little picture, and we'll see if we can figure out exactly how to make that work. I think Steve has information about that for us. Introduce yourself in the chat. Make sure that Scott knows you're here. He will be taking attendance each week to make sure that if you've missed any classes, you have a chance to make them up. Let's go to the next slide. Here's the agenda for today. Scott, do you want to talk about the agenda?
I will, and maybe just a cautionary note to everybody. And first of all, Zoom meetings are always full of surprises. For those of you that have had the pleasure of participating in some, there's always a hiccup. The first one that happened to me is my video camera shows on, but it won't let me turn on for video, so you cannot see me, but you can see Miss Carolyn. As for the agenda, we're going to try to keep in general to it, and we'll work through things today. So today's where you get a really nice overview of Heartwood, of the Master Naturalist program, and how we introduce everything and how the program's going to work. And I guess one of the main criteria here is have fun. This is supposed to be volunteer. It's supposed to be fun. Full disclosure, there is no test. So therefore, it's even more fun. So we'll talk about that all the way through the journey. But in general, why don't we just kick things off? Sorry, my video doesn't work. And full disclosure, I'm doing this remotely because I have contractors and my wife is out of town and I've got two little dogs in the room. So if you hear barking, I humbly apologize. So, and if you have any questions afterwards, send me an email, heartwoodtraining@gmail.com. All questions are good, so feel free to ask and reach out. We have a team of people on the training committee, including myself, Terry MacArthur, Michael McGee, Lisa Tuck, and Miss Carolyn, our illustrious president. Let me turn it over to her right now so we can get started.
Thank you so much, Scott.
And I'm going to mute my microphone just in case the dogs bark, Carolyn.
Okay. I just wanted to welcome all of you and thank you so much for being patient with us during the past year and year and a quarter as we tried to figure out exactly how we were going to make this work. We're very happy that we are able to do this via Zoom, so that way you don't have to wait any longer, because we know how excited you are about the outdoors and nature and learning. So welcome everyone. Let me start one of my polls. Here we go. One of the things that we wanted to find out from you right off the bat is how you heard about the Texas Master Naturalist program. And so I have launched a poll. If you see that, if you could choose an answer for us, and we will, it's not going to tell me your names. It's just going to show me, what most of you have answered. So I will let that poll sit out there while I tell you about the Texas Master Naturalist mission. You will find this in several places. Of course, it's in your books, it's on every website, whether it's the state website or our website. But the mission is to develop a core of well-informed volunteers to provide education, outreach, and service dedicated to the beneficial management of natural resources and natural areas within their communities for the state of Texas. And this system of classes that you're about to undertake is what gives you the ability to be considered well-informed. When you do go out in the public, people, and you wear the little Master Naturalist emblem, people will ask you questions about what's your favorite place to go for a walk? Where can I see white pelicans? Where's a good place to go hiking that's not just boring and not just flat? You will get lots and lots of questions. What's the best native plant I can plant? And some of those questions you will have answers for from going through the classes. Some of those questions, because you've gone through the class, you know where to find the answer or who to ask. So you'll be introduced to a lot of really interesting people who have made the environment and conservation their mission, their job. Most of us are coming to this from having a lifetime of doing what we did to make money, and have put aside that love of nature until now. And now we're like, yes, I can finally get to what I really love. And so so that is a great place to be. And now you get to meet people who do this for a living, and pick their brains, find out more about the things that you love. Let's go down. So the way the Heartwood chapter is set up is we have an executive board. The board is made of 4 members who are elected every year. This current board has been in place. This is our 3rd year. Of course, I'm the president. Carson Stokes is the vice president. Adrian Paquette is our secretary, and Andre Hauser is our treasurer. Now, all of these people on our website, you can find them listed on the website, and our website is txmn.org/Heartwood. And if you just go down and under the part that says, who are we? It'll list all the board members. Now, that's not all of the board members. These are just the executive board that's elected. There's another part of the board that is appointed. And each of these board members heads a committee. So we have advanced training, which is AT, communications, who's in charge of the bulletin, the newsletter, and social media. We have the diversity committee, the fundraising committee, the membership committee, the new class training. You just met Scott, who's our director for that. Outreach programming, volunteer service projects, and water resources. And as we need more committees, we can have ad hoc committees, and we have people who are interested in recycling and things like that. So we add as we go along, just so that way we know who to contact when we have questions and when we want to help. So here's the list of where these board members are. Like I said, you can just find that online. If you click on the person's name, I think it takes you to their email address. So you don't have to worry about remembering any of that. If you are interested in joining one of these committees, please reach out. Go into that website and just click on their picture or their name and say, I would love to help with the newsletter. I can't wait to help with the membership. And they'd be more than happy to hear from you. So one of the important things about volunteering, because that's the second component. First, there's the education, and then there's the volunteering. One of the important things is that we have partners throughout the community, and we partner with these people to become, hold on just a second. I was hearing myself talk and it was distracting me. I was like, what am I going to say next? So these are some of our partners. And our partners are important because not only do they give us places to volunteer and get our volunteer hours in, but it also, they provide us with speakers and with experts. So this is not an exhaustive list by any long stretch of the imagination, but there are so many things here. I'm not going to read them all. There are so many places and things that you can get involved with that it's hard not to find something that you're going to enjoy doing. I know Scott's going to talk in a minute about how the program is set up, how that, and Melissa will talk about how many hours you need in order to certify. And one of the things that's very exciting, if you're into pins like I am, is that as you go along, you get these beautiful pins. And so that's the pin for completing the program. Here's a pin from 2013. So each year there's a new pin as you certify. This is a Guadalupe bass. And so this is for 250 hours of volunteer service. This is 2017. And so this is 500 hours of volunteer service. So, so you can be, you know, you can rack up some pretty nice bling over time for your service hours. And if that's something that you think is kind of cool, then that's kind of cool. And if it's really just the ability to say, well, you know, I volunteered for 500 hours building bridges for the Spring Creek Nature Center, that's more than awesome. That is really, really awesome. Pins are just a little extra bling. So as you work and find what you love and work more and more there, it really is, volunteering is it's a satisfaction that you can't replace. And that is all I have, Scott. Back to you.
You'll have to give me control and I'll share my screen.
I will give you control. Here we go. You are now the host.
You are now the host. I now need to share my screen with all participants. Can you, and let's see.
I think you have the poll results now too, since I made you the host.
Okay, can you see a new screen here?
Let me stop sharing. And then you can start sharing. There, okay. I don't see your screen yet, Scott.
Advanced sharing, who can share? All participants.
Yeah.
Speaker view, that's you.
Right.
Who-
And my speaker view shows you.
And you can't see my screen, huh?
Not yet. Do you want to shoot it? Oh,
Let's try something different.
okay.
Scott, this is Bala. If you have two monitors, make sure the monitor that's sharing is in the right place.
No, I don't have two monitors. I've got a. That's funny.
Uh-oh.
Can you see me, Carolyn?
I don't see you, Scott. Is it,
I can all of a sudden see myself.
oh, that's good.
Well,
No,
all right, let me, Murphy's Law struck, hang on. Yeah.
do you,
There's nothing to do. He'll have to come back and we'll have to go get oil base paint. He said the paint won't match if it's not oil base. Yes. Okay, well, let me call you back in about 30 minutes, okay? I don't either. Let me call you back in 30 minutes, all right? Bye.
so Scott, do you want to send me your slides and I can advance them from here?
Yes, ma'am. I will do that quickly.
Okie dokie.
As always, a Zoom surprise.
It's a Zoom surprise. Here we go. Let me get to my email. And let's see. Refresh. It is still loading email. So give us just a second, guys.
Okay, it's loading right now. Will be on your way in a half a second.
Awesome. Let me take back the,
It is on the way.
good.
Someone needs to access the file. One person, send,
Okay,
sent.
awesome. It is thinking, it's cogitating. I have a cogitating computer. There it is. There we go. And I will download this. There it is. And it starts with the historical naturalist.
Just the title slide. And when you get it into slide mode, some of those are going to be hidden.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. So let me do that. Let me go ahead. I've got it downloaded and it should be opening up. What? Let me see. Let me close this and then open it again. There we go. It said, I don't agree with that. And I said, yes, you do. Okay, so enable editing and start from the beginning. Slideshow. Okay, let me see if this is what we are looking for, Scott. Back up, get out of this. Close this. Here we go. Back to my Zoom. Okay, Scott, I think we are ready to rock and roll now.
Okay, and I'll just have you share I'll just have you advance the slides, okay?
Okay, so does this look right?
It does. Now hit number 1 and go to presentation mode. There we go.
There we go. Okay, we did it. Okay, Scott, you go for it.
Okay, so just for everybody's benefit, this is the overview of the whole Master Naturalist program. I stole these slides from 2 ladies that you're going to meet right at the end of this presentation, and that's Mary Perlmuth and Michelle Haggerty. So they're very famous, they're very helpful, and without these 2 ladies that are the head of the state program, none of us would be able to do what we do. Note at the bottom, this says sponsored by Texas Parks and Wildlife and Texas A&M AgriLife. And so those are our 2 sponsoring organizations. And I know we've had many conversations about why we can't meet in person, why we can't do things, or how we do things. And that's because these 2 organizations help give us direction. So go to the next slide, Carolyn. There we go. So let's start off your education today with what is a naturalist. And in all of the literature that we have that's available to all of you and all of us, there's lots of different definitions of what is a naturalist. And so without focusing on any one particular definition, I think the one that I like the most is actually the very first bullet point. It talks about a naturalist as somebody that studies the natural environment with a broad range of interest rather than a particular specialty. So I think that by definition makes us generalists, but it also means you recognize how things connect together. So how does one little portion connect to another, and the whole ecosystem discussion comes into play. Next slide, Carolyn. Carolyn, go ahead and do the next slide. Oh, there it goes. It's trying. So here is another overview of sort of what is a naturalist. And so students of natural science or natural history. And so there again is once that word generalist comes into play. I can tell you just by personal experience, I have an earth sciences background from the oil and gas industry, and I'll assure you that there's just a whole bunch of stuff that I didn't know when I joined up 4 years ago. I think as a naturalist, there's a lot of emphasis on field investigation rather than lab work, and that means being outdoors. That means investigating. That means looking and watching and understanding how everything sort of fits together. And so that last statement, it's all one ecosystem or a system of ecosystems, becomes really pertinent to the discussion. Next slide, Carolyn. So how do you become a master naturalist? And what does it really mean to be a master naturalist? So let's explore that next. Go ahead, Carolyn. The state has established a mission statement. So like any good organization, they try to say, this is the mission, and then they have goals and objectives. So the mission of the whole program is to develop a core of well-trained master volunteers to provide education, outreach, and service dedicated toward the beneficial management of natural areas and resources within their communities for the state of Texas. Well, we all know that the state of Texas is really big, and so there's lots of communities. There's, as you're going to see, there's lots of ecoregions and lots of different focus between chapters that are really pertinent to the area that they live in. And I think one of the things that this mission describes is something that you're going to find really interesting and thrilling. Develop a core well-trained master volunteers. Well, remember those two organizations we talked about at the front, the Texas Parks and Wildlife and AgriLife? You're going to be able to meet people and work with people and do things in places that the general public doesn't have access to. And so you're going to be able to really explore lots of different opportunities and lots of options. So next slide, Carolyn. So the goal, develop a statewide volunteer network. And so that's who we are. And you're going to see how big this network is, and you're going to find out quickly that you get connected with each other in different chapters in unexpected direction. One of the big goals, I think, quite frankly, is improving the public understanding of natural resource ecology and management, like they say. And that means that you're going to help all the people that are the professionals that help manage the state natural resources like Parks and Wildlife and the AgriLife guys. You're going to really help do public outreach. You're going to explain to people why things are going on, what's going on. And it's really going to enhance what goes on in the state of Texas, especially in this area of conservation. Go ahead, Carolyn. An interesting aspect of this to me is that when I joined this program 4 years ago, I had never heard of it. I think most of everybody has had some understanding and knowledge of master gardeners. So master gardeners is, it's a well-established program. A lot of people know about it. A lot of people have heard about it. You hear plant sales. I had never heard of master naturalists, yet this whole program's been in existence for 20 years. So you can see it started up in March 1997, and the very first chapter was in San Antonio, and it's since expanded everywhere. So I think when you look at where we are today, from where it started in 1997 to they celebrated the 10th year anniversary, then a 15th year anniversary. So things have really expanded extensively. Next one, Carolyn. So this is a very important. Well, I lost my. There it goes. It came back, Carolyn. This is a very important screen because it gives you a really good idea of the breadth of the program across the state of Texas. So this slideshow is probably 2 years old, so I'm sure it's actually enhanced again. 48 chapters, 2 more in the works, 200 counties covering 78% of Texas. It's quite an interesting portfolio, I think, of what's been formed. What's interesting to me is if you look up at the top of the Panhandle and you see that's one chapter that covers that many counties at the top. Can you imagine having to have a chapter meeting like Heartwood does on a monthly basis and you're covering that much geographical territory? It's just stunning. So where is Heartwood? Go ahead and look down at the southeast corner of Texas and see those two little orange ones that Carolyn's got the curse on. It's Montgomery County and Walker County. So I would say that easily the Heartwood chapter is very much centered on the north end of the Woodlands and the south end of Conroe. I think the large majority of our members come from there, but of note, Harris County is a pretty big place, and there's a chapter below us called the Gulf Coast chapter, and we have people that come from the northern end of Harris County that are part of Heartwood and join the chapter. We have people in Walker County that drive down, but I'd say the population base is smaller. So most of the residents are really Montgomery County residents. Next one, Carolyn. So once again, these are the sponsoring agencies that assist us in executing the mission and going after those goals and objectives. And we will, as a chapter, help to improve public access to the outdoors. And so increasing awareness of conservation, increasing awareness of, why do they have, burns in the national forest and it's all smoky? What can you do to help preserve the ecosystem on private lands? And Texas is majority private land ownership. It's not government owned. So therefore it's on the citizens actually to take care of the land. Next one, Carolyn. We sort of pretty much talked about this. I think one of the notes here that's probably worth mentioning is that there are a lot of urban wildlife biology and natural resources efforts. And so urban programs, for instance, in Harris County and Montgomery County are really important because they're not rural counties. There's lots you can do in an urban environment for ecosystem preservation and enhancement. So you're going to learn a lot about that as we go along the journey of our instruction. Go ahead, Carolyn. This is a little bit of the impact. And so remember, this slide shows a couple of years old. So plus there was a pandemic year in here, but this is what the state tallied up as the impact of the program up to 2018. So you can see 390,000 people reached, 111 miles of trails developed, 483,000 volunteer hours, $11.2 million of financial contribution. That's probably on the low end. I think there's another slide right after this that gives even more depth. Go ahead, Carolyn. Yeah, so you can see we have 12,000 volunteers, 4.5 million hours of community outreach, and that has a value. They put a value on how much our volunteer efforts actually mean to the state and why it's so important. So $102 million, that's pretty big impact for volunteer efforts. Reaching over 500,000 or so people, youth and adults annually. 6.5 million people to date. That's a tremendous impact. So, and it's just growing. It's getting more robust and getting more enhanced every year. Go ahead, Carolyn. So here's a little bit more impact. 229,000 acres of habitat enhanced, 2,300 miles of interpretive trails developed or improved that wouldn't have been done otherwise. And then they also have applied for national, state, and local awards, the TCQ, which you're going to learn more about along the journey. The Texas Commission on Environmental Quality is sort of like the Texas equivalent of the EPA. So that is another organization that you'll see what they do and how it connects to us. Go ahead, Carolyn. And then here's several awards. There's probably really too many to list. There's just one after the other. So I think the program speaks for itself. The robustness and the depth speaks for itself. So we'll hear more about that as we go along the journey. Go ahead, Carolyn. So how to certify? What does that mean? So let's go to the next slide. You'll hear this more in depth when Melissa, who's our Heartwood membership chairman, when she gets and starts talking about more of the details. But this is the base requirement that we all go through just to get started. Going through the training sessions, as you're on the first one a day, you're going to achieve at a minimum 40 hours of classroom and field instruction. Well, we're hampered by the pandemic, as you know, so we're hampered by the ability to meet face to face. And so we're going to have to work with this in the current situation the best we can. But we will provide you at least 40 hours, and it's probably going to run up to 47 to 50 hours of classroom instruction. Typically, we would meet face to face and we would meet at the Jones Forest classroom. And as you know, we cannot do that. And so that's actually a challenge for all of us. We don't get to know you as quickly. You won't get to know each other as quickly and associate names to faces. And so this is just an unusual time that we're going to have to work through. Regardless, at the end of it, just like all of us that went through the training, I didn't know anybody in the chapter when I started, and yet 4 years ago, the people that are on the current training committee, we're all now friends and partners in this Heartwood chapter conservation effort. You're going to hear from Melissa more about 8 hours of approved advanced training, and you heard Carolyn mention that. You cannot go, for instance, to just any website and look at some subject on butterflies or whatever. You have to do advanced training on something that the chapter has approved. And typically it has to be something that is a live audience to where you have the opportunity to ask the presenter questions. So we'll talk a little bit more about that to make sure that when you do log in your approved advanced training, that you do so and pick and choose the right ones and those that count toward your certification. And then finally, 40 hours of approved service projects. That means that Heartwood is going to show a potpourri of approved service project opportunities. Those are the ones that Heartwood counts toward these hours. And if it's not on the list, then it's not going to count. Regardless, when you do these 40 hours of approved service projects, I can assure you that when I went through and tried, to get my service project hours, I was sort of struggling on where to go. And we're going to show you an easy way to make that happen. So after you get certified and you get the pin that Carolyn already showed you, you're going to have annually be required to get 40 more hours of volunteer service and 8 more hours of advanced training. And you do that every year. And it's just a way to log in your hours and contribute once again to the conservation effort that the Master Naturalist program offers around the state. So there's lots of options to do that. And what that means is you'll get to explore anything that you want of interest. And it's really a good thing. Next slide, Carolyn. Here's your textbook Bible. And so you see the lady's name at the top, who are the editors, Michelle Haggerty and Mary Pearl Muth, who you'll meet along the way. Big textbook, huh? Most of you already have it. If you don't, you can send me a note and we'll make sure that you pick up your textbook because it was included in your training fees. Of note, if you look at the author of each chapter, almost all of them come from Texas A&M, from the professor community that they have established. And so I consider most of them very well written, very much in depth. We will try to follow in general the sort of progress of the textbook as we go through your training. And so it's got sort of a general curriculum aspect to it, but I assure you that we don't cover everything. I think as we go along your instruction, if you have a chance, you should try to review or scan or take a glance at each chapter that we've listed on the curriculum and say, let's take a look at this, and you'll get a lot more details than we can give you in the morning that we go through the training session. Next slide, Carolyn. We talked about this. I think if you go back and review the curriculum, you're going to see that we're going to cover almost everything in here. And so some of the things that you'll learn: ecoregions of Texas, ecological concepts, how you manage natural systems, different master naturalist disciplines. And I think the interesting part is how you pick up the baton and carry forward this conversation. So here's a question that popped up. What happens if one is unable to meet the requirements for 1 year, like year 2026? that means you're still part of Heartwood, and it just means you don't get a certification pin. That's all that means. So remember, this is voluntary. You don't have to complete your 40 hours of volunteer hours in order to be a Heartwood member, in order to interact with the community. You just need to see and do the best you can. Sometimes life gets in the way, and that's just the way things are. But just consider their goals. And if you get your 40 hours of volunteer hours in and your 8 hours of advanced training, then you're going to be able to keep your certification going. And it's just a part of being part of the process. Next slide, Carolyn. Advanced training, we've already talked a little bit about this. Go to the next slide. I think I've got something better, Carolyn. Yeah, since I started, thanks to Carolyn and a lot of other folks in Heartwood, the Heartwood Bulletin, which you should already be seeing every week, gives you a list of advanced training opportunities. Remember, I told you they had to be approved by the chapter. Well, here's a list of them. And so you can pick and choose if you want to take a look at invasives, if you want to take a look at bluebirds, if you want to go and the Native Plant Society down there at the bottom. Weekly, you can click, sign up, watch a webinar. You can use the bulletin as a vehicle to get in your 8 hours of advanced training. So is there another method? Sure. If you just attend the chapter meetings across the year, we have 11 chapter meetings per year. I think we take December off. So as we go through our monthly chapter meetings, and right now we're doing that all online, it's not in person. Hopefully that'll change soon. If you just attend, you're going to get in 8, 9, 10 hours of advanced training, and you'll achieve your advanced training just by going to the chapter meeting and meeting your fellow Heartwood members. And so this, if you're not already signed up for the bulletin, you need to let Carol and I know, and we'll make sure that you are on the master list so you get the weekly email that shows all this good stuff. Go ahead, Carolyn. There is an annual conference every year. Of note, the one that was in 2020 was supposed to be in Houston, would have been convenient to everybody, and it got canceled. And so there was a pandemic, and that meeting turned into a virtual meeting, which I was a bit skeptical as to how well that would work, and it actually worked pretty well. I had somebody last year, maybe year before, during one of the training classes say, well, I'm an intern. Am I eligible to go to the conference? Absolutely. If it's within driving distance, if it's something that you're interested in doing, you can claim lots of advanced training. You can get lots of different presentations across the board of subject matter. So when it comes up as an opportunity, if you'd like to go to the annual meeting, please feel free. You don't have to be certified to go, is the main point. Go ahead, Carolyn. Volunteer service projects. Let's see, from Kendra, some of us accumulated quite a few advanced training and volunteer hours during 2020 while waiting. I'll let Melissa address that, Kendra, okay? Because I think it's not a problem at all. It's a good thing. Volunteer service projects, one of the things that one of our training committee people encouraged me 4 years ago is when you do your service project, try a little bit of everything. Why don't you dip your toe in the water? And if you've never done birding, if you've never done mycology, mushroom hunting, if you've never done invasives, why don't you just try a little bit of everything? Because you'll find out there's some things you like, some things you don't like. So it's up to you. And so I'll show you in a little while what I stumbled across during my volunteer service projects. And now it's one of the major things I do is volunteering for my own activity. Next one, Carolyn. You already saw some of this in Carolyn's introductory slideshow about different things. There's you're going to come across this through the next several months. So just stay tuned, especially as the requirements ease up on us, our ability to meet face to face and to do direct volunteering. This is going to all happen. Keep going, Carolyn. I think the last one in between this, remember this was the state presentation. They're trying to talk about that there's a lot you can do in your community, and there's also things that are bigger than your community, and that could be a statewide project. And I'll show you my volunteering effort in a little while when we talk about a couple of us and what we do to volunteer. I'm involved in one that involves a sister chapter that's over in Livingston, and it involves 4 different counties. And so that's not just in the Woodlands area, for instance. Next slide, Carolyn. And another statewide project. There's a lot of stuff you'll see come up on like small acreage landowner consultation. It's very common, I think, even in the Heartwood community, that somebody will have 10 acres of property or 40 acres of property, and they say, what can I do in my place? And so we have different presentations about habitat restoration, about how you can work with different landowner initiatives, I guess is the message here. Go ahead, Carolyn. Okay, so I'm legal now what? I think this is already a question that came up, and this is what we all try to do for our own mission and goals, is stay involved in your local chapter meetings. And if you do that, and just participate, you're going to see lots of doors open up. One of the questions that also happens, I think, that comes up with as an intern in the training class is, can you participate in the committees? Yes. If you want to sign up for one of the committees that Carolyn showed at the introduction, please feel free. I think you need to be certified to actually run the committee, but you can be part of anything. You can start getting engaged and getting involved and being part of the group. And so please feel free to jump in for anything. The very bottom one is actually pretty important. Use the Texas Master Naturalist title and certification appropriately. We've had people that have come in and say, well, I run a landscape business and I'd like to put on my business card, Texas Master Naturalist certified. You can't do that. The state says you can't do that. You're a volunteer, you're part of a volunteer organization. You can't use it as a certification. So that's something that I would suggest to you, that you need to be careful. And if there's a question, just simply reach out to any of the leadership of Heartwood and they can tell you. Don't cultivate personal biases or agendas. Well, I've got news for all of you. The good news is that politics aren't allowed in our efforts to be volunteers and doing good conservation work. So we are neutral. The only interest that this organization has is to support the sponsoring groups like Parks and Wildlife and AgriLife, and also just to get outdoors, to learn more, and to have a lot of fun. This is a fun program, and any of the work you do is actually not work, it's just fun. Go ahead, Carolyn. So let's see, the benefits, what's in it for you? Opportunity. I think I've sort of stressed that over and over, and you're going to see from some of the volunteer presentations how much of a opportunity that you really have. I work with Parks and Wildlife people personally. I work with Trinity River Authority people personally. One of the volunteer programs you'll hear about is we teach the same training at a TDC Ellis unit up northeast of Huntsville. So in a prison, who would have ever thought that we would be involved in something like that? And it's turned out to have benefits that that are just unexpected. So new friendships, working relationships, individual awards and recognition, that sort of comes with the territory. You're going to be exposed to many people that really are experts in the field. And we have people in the chapter that have become experts, and you're going to meet some of them in your instruction program. When you meet the 2 guys that do ornithology, for instance, one is a chemist and one used to be compliance in a technical industry. So long story short, the world is your oyster. So enjoy the ride. It's a lot of fun. Go ahead, Carolyn. This is something that I thought the state presentation had in it that I thought was real important. If you look at the website, txmn.org, that's the state master naturalist website, you should go to that website and stay connected. See where it says staying connected? You sign up for the listserv, and what that does is give you an email push from the state for different things that they have programs that might be up in Brenham or San Marcos or Fort Worth. And some people drive there to go through special instruction on nature tracking or just birding. There's all kinds of things that are opportunities. And so you should sign up for that. Next one. So here are the two ladies that run it. This is a picture of Michelle Haggerty, and I think it's her husband and kid. This slide's old. I'm sure that that kid is now a lot older and running around. Next one. And here's Mary Pearl. If you go to the state annual conference, you will meet both of these ladies, and they do a tremendous job of supporting our program. Next slide. That's it. So that gives you an overview of the program. It gives you an overview of our mission, goals, and objectives, and just an outline, I think, of how big the program is and how robust it is. So you're going to hear more about all of this in terms of more detail, especially from Melissa, on how to qualify and how to enter your hours and how to use the VMS system. So Carolyn, I'll turn it back over to you at this point.
Okay, who's next, Scott?
Let's see.
I don't have the agenda in front of me, unfortunately.
Well, I do.
I was hoping you did.
So after the overview, I think we turn it over to Mr. Peter Jensen, who I admitted a few minutes ago, and let him talk about stuff. And then meanwhile, I'm going to email you my Lake Livingston presentation, okay?
Oh, good. Okay, that's awesome. Let me make sure that Peter is able to present to us. Let me find Peter. Oh, I think I might have seen him right here.
Peter, you can put your video on if you want.
Okay.
Peter.
Now that my view has changed, maybe I won't be able to.
Here we go.
How
Oh,
about that?
you know what? I need you to. Oh, that's awesome, Peter. Scott, could you make me host again?
Oh.
Oh, wait, I think I got it. Okay, I got it.
Are you back? Are you okay?
I am back. I am back. Peter, show yourself again.
I'm here. Can you see me?
Yes, I can. There we go. Welcome, Peter. It's so good to see you.
You all too. Thank you. Thank you. Good to be here. Welcome to all of the new interns, shall we say, for the Master Naturalist program. It's a phenomenal program. I completed the program in 2018, and I came to the program in somewhat of a different way, or maybe the same way as many of you. When I retired 4 years ago, I was looking for something to do with respect to the environment. And I had been exposed to the Bayou Land Conservancy while I was still employed with a small company called ExxonMobil. And we had conducted a cleanup for them after the Memorial Day and Tax Day floods over at the nature preserve at Riley Fuzzle. So I kept the Bayou Land Conservancy in my mind as to what I'd like to do with respect to the environment when I retired. And I reconnected with them and discovered they have an ambassador program. I won't tell you a lot about that because we're somewhat short on time today, but I do encourage all of you to check out the Bayou Land Conservancy's website, and it's just Bayou Land Conservancy altogether.org. And on the site, you'll get a great explanation as to what the ambassador program is all about. So while I was going through the ambassador program, I met a few people who were Texas Master Naturalists. And they told me about what you're all going through today. And that really sparked my interest. And I looked into it. And fortunately, there was a class that was coming up in 2018. And I took the class, again, thanks to the folks at Bayou Land Conservancy. So that's how I came to be with the Master Naturalist. Now, let me add a few things about the Bayou Land Conservancy, which are on the website, but it's more relevant to what I've been doing with them. So after I took the ambassador course, I got involved with the trail crew. And many of you, maybe none of you, hopefully all of you, are familiar with the Spring Creek Nature Trail. Well, we have helped not only build that 14+ mile nature trail through Harrison, Montgomery County, but we maintain it on Wednesdays. So that's one of my volunteer opportunities. We have a morning trail day. When we were building the bridges and boardwalks on that trail, we would go for upwards of 2 days to build those. So it wasn't just a morning event. And while I was with them, I also discovered that each of the trail sections were divided up and they were looking for people to be trail stewards. So that became another volunteer opportunity for me. As you can see, I'm having trouble saying no to a lot of things. So I became a trail steward, and then I found out they were looking for people to be on committees. So I joined one of the committees. I was on the gala committee, and like many nonprofits, the Bayou Land Conservancy holds an annual gala. It was somewhat canceled last year due to COVID, but I was on the gala committee for 3 years. And I thought, well, it's time to move off that. They need some fresh minds on that. And then I learned they have a conservation crew. And the conservation crew, we are involved in conducting surveys on the Bayou Land Conservancy's preserves. And while you're on the website, you'll note that the Bayou Land Conservancy has approximately 14,000 acres under management. And because it's a land conservancy, these surveys that we conduct are on conservation easements. In fact, I conducted one yesterday on the Lake Creek Preserve, which I know a lot of you are familiar with, and that's right nearby. In fact, it's adjacent to the wood forest development. So I encourage you to all take a look at that. It's a well laid out preserve. And I thought, you know, that's pretty good. That's probably all I'd like to be doing with the Bayou Land Conservancy. So when you think about volunteer opportunities and looking to get out and doing things in nature and supporting your local area, supporting your nonprofits, and also accumulating hours to maintain your certification within the Master Naturalist program, the Bayou Land Conservancy alone has given me more than enough hours each year to put towards my certification. And keep in mind, when you're on these various committees, and you could be on a committee with the Master Naturalist program, you'll also be accumulating hours towards your certification. And I've read ahead on what you'll all be talking about today, if you haven't already, about how to input your hours to the Master Naturalist website. So in addition to the Bayou Land Conservancy, I've also been assisting with the invasive species group in the Woodlands area that's sponsored by the Woodlands Green. And hopefully you'll hear more about the Woodlands Green while you're involved with the training, whether it's today or another day. And we spend hours each month working on different sections within the woodlands on removing invasive species. And I know you'll hear about invasive species during the program. So the opportunities for volunteering within the community and throughout Texas, no matter where you're living, is incredible. I know Scott will be talking about the Friends of Lake Livingston. And as much as I'd like to be helping them up there, I find that I just can't put myself out too much. I'm also involved with the Montgomery County Food Bank and the Houston Maritime Museum. So there's so many nonprofit opportunities that you all can get involved in. And I strongly encourage you to do so, not just for the hours for the Master Naturalist, but the people that you will meet who will become new friends, good friends, the exposure you'll have to that nonprofit, to the local community, to the environment. And then when you see the results of your volunteerism, to me, it's, I categorize it as getting paid triple time, and it's triple time to the heart. So again, there's so many out there, and you'll hear about many of them while you're going through this program. I encourage you to take a look at the Bayou Land Conservancy site. A lot of great information, and also the Woodlands Green and invasive species. So there's a lot to be done for yourselves. You won't be at a loss for finding things.
Thank you so much, Peter. We actually have a comment from Lisa Chaddock where she says, thank you for mentioning the local resources. I'm following all of them on Facebook now. That is a good way, a really good way to kind of stay abreast of what they have going on in their backyards, and to find a place to kind of plug yourself in. So I think that is fabulous.
And you will find not only the BLC on Facebook, but LinkedIn, and I'm sure many of the organizations are also on LinkedIn. So Facebook, LinkedIn, great opportunities.
They are amazing opportunities. And if you haven't had a chance to get out to the Spring Creek Greenway Nature Trail, that is a beautiful, beautiful walk. And there are several different places to get onto that trail, and just it's amazing. And the boardwalks y'all have made, and the trails y'all have blazed, just beautiful.
Well, thank you. And on the BLC website, there is a map that you can download, print, add to your iPhone that you can use to help you navigate around the trails. And the trails also have markers that you just put your iPhone camera up to it, and it will give you comments about what you can find in that section of the trail. So the trail is not only maintained by the BLC, but the Woodlands Township is involved and the counties are involved. So it's a big joint effort.
There are, for those of you who love bugs like I do, there is a leafcutter ant community on one of the trails. So I will let y'all explore that, try to figure out where that is, because it's so cool. I mean, you are literally surrounded by these trails and trails of busy little ants bringing bits of leaves back to their nest. It's amazing.
It's impressive. One other comment that Scott, who is leading this, was also an ambassador. He's helped us a great deal. Carson Stokes, who's on the Heartwood chapter board, is also an ambassador and is on the board for the BLC. That's the other thing, I'm on the board for the BLC. So I'm a bit stretched out. So you can do as much or as little as you want.
And sometimes there's not enough of us to go around, because they really do rely on us to get a lot of the things that they are trying to accomplish done. So we are very, very pleased that we have another crew coming in this year to help. to lend hands. So thank you so much, Peter. So good to see you again, even if we
You-
can't see you in person.
I know, you too. And if anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd be welcome to answer them.
Awesome.
Thank
So,
you.
Scott, who's up next?
Me.
Awesome.
Yeah, who is Showbo all for you email?
Showbo.
They said they got disconnected and want to get back in, but I sent them an email, told them to hit the link again.
Oh. Huh. So you have the email address right there, Scott?
Yeah.
Okay, hang on. I'm going to get someplace where I can send him this too. And,
Oh, it's Sean.
oh, it's Sean. Is she back in?
No, I told her to click the link again, and she hasn't done that. So she's not waiting to be admitted. That's all I'm trying to say.
Okay. Do you have her email address right there, Scott?
Yeah, Sean-Smiles@hotmail.com.
I got her. I found her. Okay. I'll send her the link in
Yeah,
an
and
email.
all I need for you to do is to pull up the friend presentation I sent you, Friends of Lake Livingston,
Got it. Here we go.
and share the screen, and we're off.
And we are off and running again. Let me download it. There we are. Close this guy. Here we go. We are opening that up. And there we go. And let's start at the beginning. Let me go back over to, oop. Stop that. Okay. To here. Okie dokie, Scott, I am ready. Let me share my screen. This is the one. And from the beginning, and y'all,
There you go.
you see it?
I do. There we
Awesome.
go.
Let's do it.
All right. So one of the reasons, and every week we're going to do this, is to illustrate how different members of Heartwood do their volunteering. They're just examples, they're ideas. You don't have to do it this way. It's just you have unexpected consequences is the way I like to say it. When I was an intern, I saw a presentation, a guy came in, restoration of aquatic habitat in Lake Livingston, and I had a weekend place on the north end of the lake, and so I was really interested in it. And so now 4 years later, somehow I'm in charge of the project, and it's doing all kinds of magnificent things. And once again, in partnership with our two organizations, Texas Parks and Wildlife and the Trinity River Authority. So next slide, please, Ms. Carolyn. I'm going to be real succinct in this. So Peter and I were just trying to give you an illustration of options and opportunities that just sort of come up. And the Bayou Land Conservancy does incredible things in the woodlands. And this is an illustration of what is going on up in Walker County and adjacent counties. Lake Livingston's an 85,000 acre lake. It's an impounded river, and you're going to hear that word a lot. So there's a dam at the bottom, and this dam backs up the Trinity River and makes this huge lake, and it's therefore subject to siltation and water turbidity and poor fish habitat and just a whole lot of challenges. But more importantly, this is one of the major water sources for the city of Houston. The city of Houston actually paid to build the dam, and the Trinity River Authority manages the dam. And this is a water source. This is getting away from pumping groundwater, which causes subsidence, and using surface water as a way to supply water to 4 million people, with a population that's growing. Next slide, please. Like any other project, goals and objectives. And I think number one on the left-hand side where it says restore habitat, we're using an aquatic plant called American water willows, which we plant along shorelines and in shallow flats, and it's meant to improve the ecology and improve the habitat. So what it does is it helps with water filtration. In theory, it's going to reduce turbidity a little bit, but you know, it's a big lake. It's 85,000 acres. Next slide, Carolyn. This is what these plants look like. They're not unique to Texas. They're actually used in a lot of places around the southeastern United States. And why are they a really good plant to put in the lake? First of all, not affecting the water source. It's not invasive. It won't grow past about 3 feet of water. It provides all kind of neat habitat just along the near shoreline for macroinvertebrates and things that fish like, and grass carp hate it. So therefore they don't eat it. And there are grass carp in Lake Livingston, and there's a bunch of them in Lake Conroe, and they eat every aquatic plant in sight. So next slide, Carolyn. You may have to hit the button a bunch of times to make a whole bunch of little circles come up, Carolyn. Like about, yeah, keep hitting it. Yeah, keep hitting it. See all those little dots for everybody in the group. So those are the sites that we planted around Lake Livingston. I can tell you that some of them were successful, some of them failed. And what we did is we learned along the way in the last several years of using science to make the output better. Go ahead, Carolyn. Nope, still doing that. We can just get off this slide. Just keep punching the button until it goes to a big, there you go. See the slide on the left when it says Friends of Reservoirs? That's actually a national group that's run under U.S. Fish and Wildlife. They have a 403B, CB, I'm not even saying it right this morning. It's called the Reservoir Fish Habitat Partnership, and that's the nonprofit arm of U.S. Fish and Wildlife. And that little red block on the right is actually a textbook that they wrote. And we use the science that's contained in that textbook to implement conservation methods that help improve the output of the project. Next slide. So first we established founder colonies, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. And then we got away from just water willows and we started planting different plant species. So it's not just a monoculture that's getting put into the lake. And then we started doing shoreline enhancement through riparian restoration techniques, which coincidentally are something that Texas Master Naturalists champion routinely. And if you look at that little bottom right-hand sign that shows all these sponsoring organizations, this involves 4 counties, 8 high schools, and 1 prison unit. So it's gone in unexpected directions. Next slide, please. Here's what the plants look like. We're planting all of these in Lake Livingston now. So we've got water willows, bulrush, eelgrass, pickerelweed, 2 different types of American pondweed. All of them don't exist in the lake. And you remember we talked about an impounded river. What happens when they build a dam and it floods a lot of timberland? It takes a while for the ecology to get reset and start sponsoring plants that are specific to a nearshore lake environment. So you just flooded a bunch of farmland that have pine trees everywhere. So that's what we're doing, is helping the process along. Go forward, Carolyn. This is what a founder colony looks like. You put these pins and fencing all around your initial planting. And what that does is it keeps herbivory action down. So turtles don't eat it, deer don't graze on it. It just gives the colony a good chance to start up. This is not Lake Livingston. This was actually from a lake that was up, I think, in Kentucky. Go ahead, Carolyn. This is Lake Livingston. This is at the Trinity River Authority Park on the southwest corner of the lake. We found out the hard way that if you plant these plants in a real windy environment along the near shore, that it affects them, in fact, knocks them down and kills them. If you go into a sheltered creek that's an inlet into the lake, on the right-hand side, you can see in 2 years, we have a massive amount of improvement, and it's self-generating and self-propagating. Go ahead, Carolyn. This is what is a little bit unique about the project. This is at the Sam Houston State Bearcat Camp, which is sort of a weekend camp that's northeast of Huntsville up around Riverside, Texas. The guy on the left is a Heartwood member and a colleague of ours that helps me with the project, and he also teaches horticulture at the Ellis unit for the TDC. That's where we do our Master Naturalist instruction. We grow plants there. But on the right-hand side, more importantly, is we interact with 8 high schools around the southern end of the lake. All of these high schools have ag programs. They have propagation tanks. They grow water willows. They get a college education. And then so they have skin in the game. They also go out to the lake once a year and they put their own plants in the lake and they help improve the quality of the water and the quality of the ecology around the lake. Go ahead, Carolyn. This is just an example of our first pinning techniques. You can see the plants that are inside that pin. That happened just over 2 months. The ones outside the plant on the top right-hand side are only about 8 inches tall. You can see how tall they grow when they're protected. Keep going, Carolyn. We encountered a El Nino summer in 2019, and all those plants went underwater for 2 to 6 feet of water in muddy water. We thought they had died. Go ahead, Carolyn. Sorry, I'll go off topic a second. We also found out through the program and through the National Friends of Reservoir Group that the kids could make artificial fish habitats. Remember, there's no plants for the fish, no fish to hide in. There's no reefs, there's no rocks. It's a muddy bottom. It's a lot of old flooded farmland. And so we make these things called Georgia cubes, and you put them in the lake and weight them down with concrete blocks, and the fish love it, and it improves the fish habitat, which is also an ecology improvement. Of note, we don't put anything in this lake that's not approved by Texas Parks and Wildlife and the Trinity River Authority. They're in charge, we're the volunteers, and so we go under their jurisdiction. Keep going, Carolyn. And I think this is the last slide. It's just to illustrate the unexpected consequences. All those high schools, that first bullet point, those are high schools around the southern end of Lake Livingston across 3 counties. Big Sandy, Cold Spring, Oakhurst, Corrigan, Camden, Goodrich, Livingston, Alaska, Leggett, and Shepherd. All of these kids have their own propagation tanks growing the plants. All of them get ecology improvement. And we've added in that Ellis unit that's on the north end of the lake. And so, long story short, this was sort of similar to what Peter talked about on the Bayou Land Conservancy. When I was an intern and started my own volunteering, I had no idea this project existed. I had no idea that we could do these kind of things, so that we could work with these kids and work with so many people in the community. Rosalind wants to know what the tanks are called again. They're just called propagation tanks. And so see those, the middle picture on the left, Roz? Those are just wood boxes, and they have a big liner in them. And we put the plants in there, and we start them out in seed trays. They're about 2 or 3 inches tall. And then when they go in these tanks, those are filled with water. And then we grow them till they're probably knee high. And then we transfer them into big red buckets, like that red bucket that's on the bottom where the 2 girls are down there planting in the mud and having a good time. And that's what we do. And now we've planted at least over 15,000 plants and counting. Of the sites that we plant now, the most successful ones are on the north side of the lake. The south end of Lake Livingston is actually bulkheaded, so you can't plant anything in front of the bulkhead. So we found lots of wetland, marshy stuff. So I think Carolyn had a slide about what kind of naturalist are you? I guess that makes me a wetlander. So, all right, Carolyn, that's all I got. Back to you.
Who's next for us, Scott?
I believe at this point, unless let's look at the agenda real quick. We were going to take a break. It's 9:45, so why don't we take a 15-minute break and see if we can start back at 10 and see if Melissa can come on in and get started at 10-ish.
Perfect. Perfect.
Is that okay? Everybody, mark your clocks. It's 9:44 on my computer. That I assure you will be functional by the time we do the next class. Okay. So we got a 15-minute break. Go grab some coffee or a restroom break, and at 10 o'clock sharp, we'll try to start again if we can locate Melissa.
15 minutes countdown. I was going to let you know that our results from our first poll, 15% of the people who heard about the Master Naturalist heard about us over social media, 45% from word of mouth, 3% on the radio, and 40% other. You have to find out what other is. If you wrote other, please include it in the chat box and let me know how else you are hearing about it. For what kind of naturalist are you? 48% said they're foresters. So it's a good thing we live up here in the forest, right? Only 10% like bugs. What? That's got to be a typo somewhere. Wetlanders is 18%, birders are 25%, botanists 23%, outdoor adventure is 40%. Yeah, it's pretty fun outside, right? Geologists are 10%, herpetologists, those nice little snakies, is 13%, mammalogists is 13%, and 30% say it's too soon to decide. Thank you so much for taking the time to answer our poll this morning. We love to do little polling just to kind of see where people are, what they're doing. That is so cool, Lisa Tuck, that you found out about the master naturalists while Googling the master gardeners. We are so glad you did. And volunteering with your students, Dana, that's pretty cool. Awesome. Let's see. Let me make sure that I'm going to go ahead and mute myself while I give. We are 1 minute in to starting up again. I hope you are all back and ready to go. I've got Melissa. Let me make sure that you are going to make you a co-host.
Okay, good morning.
There we go, Melissa. Awesome. Ready to, it's 10 a.m. Let's get it going.
44 people. Okay, is everybody back?
Let's do this. There we go. You ready to share your screen?
Am I sharing mine or are you sharing it?
What would you like, my love?
Go ahead. If you have it, go ahead and I'll go with it. And then I'll talk about the opportunities.
Okay.
Have them up on the side.
Let me see if I've got yours ready to go.
Okay, so I'm hoping all of you have probably already logged into VMS and you've kind of looked around to see what kind of opportunities we have and checked it out. It's fairly simple to use. When you log in, you're going to have 6 icons at the top of VMS. And the 2 that we use the most are Report My Service and View My Logbook. So Report Your Service is where you're going to find all the opportunities. And you'll pick the one you need for your service you provided and log your hours. If you ever want to go back and make corrections, you'll go back to View My Logbook. And that will, you'll be able to delete something if you made a mistake, or even I'll send you a message and say something's not right, and you'll be able to delete it on your side. And if not, you know, I can talk you through it. You'll have my phone number and my email, so I can work with you. Okay.
There we go.
Okay, how to use VMS. Just like I was saying, it's easy to log in with your name and you have a passcode. If for any reason you lose your passcode, you can just send me an email and I will reset it for you and send you a new passcode, and then you can go back in and change it again. Like I said, you'll have your screen and it'll have 6 icons on there, and we'll use the 2 the most. Also in the upper right corner is your total hours. So you can see how many volunteer hours you have and how many advanced training hours you have. Okay, let's go to the next one. So when you volunteer, you have 45 days to log your hours. Okay, so I suggest that you pick maybe once a month or once every week to log your hours. That way it's easier to keep up with them and you don't lose track. If you wait too long, you might forget. So if you have a little calendar book or something, you know, write them down in there and log them either once a week or once a month so you don't lose them. Okay, we good? And that the next slide. Okay, so when we log our hours, you may work, you know, 1 hour, 2 hours, 1.5 hours, and you can see how I put it out there for you. If it's 15 minutes, it's 0.25. If it's 30 minutes, it's 0.5. 45 minutes, 0.75. Now, if this gets messed up, a lot of times I will just fix it online. I may shoot you an email and remind you, but it's really easy for me to fix while I'm in the VMS system. Okay. Okay, we're going to go through the federal reporting codes, but I'm also going to kind of tell you a little about them as we go. These are the ones that you will pick for the service that you provided. And I'm going to try to break them down so it'll be easier. So we'll start going through them. Go ahead, Carolyn. Okay, AT is advanced training. You're taking your initial training right now. So that won't go under this. I don't want it to get confused. But if you take extra classes or you go to something that's live or interactive workshops, all of that will go under advanced training. Now, you always want to make sure you get this approved, okay? So if it's not on our calendar that we put out every month, shoot me an email, or I think it's Bruce, covers advanced training, right? And Bruce can see if he can approve that for you, okay? And sometimes some great things come up that aren't on our calendar, and that's all right. Just, make sure it's in our range and we'll get it approved for you, okay? And on the VMS, your AT is going to be listed for many of the parks that we volunteer for. So there may be AT at Club Woods or AT at Jesse Jones. All of that's on there, AT at Mercer. So there'll be lots of things that are under this listing, okay? So if you don't see something, then let us know. Okay, the next one is chapter meeting, chapter business. Chapter business is, if you're on a committee, you can put that under there. And it's just a little various things that we may do if you're helping us with committees or different things like that. So our chapter business meeting is next, I think. Oh, writing newsletter articles, stuff like that. And then chapter meeting is just chapter meeting. So our chapter meetings are usually 0.25 or 0.50. So they don't take very long. They're at the beginning of our monthly training class. Okay, Carolyn. Okay, DO, direct outreach, leading, organizing, developing, delivering instruction. There's a lot that y'all can do for this. And on our VMS account, you'll see DO Bayou Land Conservancy, DO Girl Scouts, Leave No Trace, Lee College, the Woodlands Township, and then regular training and education. So you can pick those. If you were planning something and taking it out to teach, that it would go under DO. And if y'all have questions, don't hesitate to ask. I think Carolyn's watching the chat box. Go ahead, Carolyn. We're going to field research. We do a lot of field research. So this is collecting data for various organizations. So when you go out, we have a lot that's already listed on our VMS. We do bird populations, there's bluebird monitoring, bird counts, City Nature Challenge, which is coming up, Coco Raw's weather reporting, eBird, Great Backyard Bird Count, Houston Bat Team, hummingbirds at home, invasive species, there's a ton. So you can go on there and look and see what you did, and you should be able to find it. Again, some of this stuff is on our calendars and we talk about it monthly to remind you what's going on. But if something is not on there, just shoot us an email and we can figure out where you can put it. Okay, initial training, that's what you're doing now. So all of your hours for this class will go under IT, and it's directly under the last field research line on the VMS account if you have a hard time finding it, it's kind of stuck in there. So all of your hours will go under there, and we keep track of that. I can see that, how many classes you attended and if you need to make up a class and such. So I believe y'all are, I think you're at 50 hours, right, Carolyn, or no?
At 50 hours, I think they're at 46 or 47.
So 46, 47 hours you'll have to have in your initial training. Okay, so our next one is your NPA. So this one gets confused a lot with resource management. So anything that goes under NPA is improvements to something that the public has access to. So you see that they're building a bridge and they're working in the flower beds in this one. I think this is the Bayou Land Conservancy. They're building a bridge for one of the hiking trails or biking trails. And then at the top, I believe, is at W.G. Jones, and they're working on a flower bed that the general public has access to. So anything you're creating to make something better for the public, okay? Same thing, we have lots of places listed on VMS. OT is something that doesn't count towards our funding. So most everything that you log on your VMS account is worth $23 an hour. And that goes to those organizations. And if you do OT, it doesn't count. So those are just little things we don't count a lot. So that's board and committee work, working with non-native plants, and rehabbing animals. So that's all for that one. We don't have people don't log really a lot of OT. Public outreach, this is the fun stuff. Leading and organizing, working booths, getting out there, writing articles, just doing a lot of stuff for the public. Also, it says impact data, and you may go, what's impact data? Well, that's where you're going to count how many people you reached out to, how many people came to your booth. I usually take a little clicker that counts, and I'll use that at a booth to know how many people that I talked to. And when you go to log that in on VMS, at the very bottom, it'll have impact data, and you'll put the numbers of adults or children and that kind of information. And sometimes it'll also ask how many trail miles you did or how far you drove and all that kind of stuff. So, okay, next is resource management. And this is where you're going out to take care of stuff and preserve stuff. So again, you see people maybe pulling invasives, protecting stuff, a lot of planting. There's so much for resource management. And again, we have a lot of those listed on the VMS. All of our parks, Friends of Lake Livingston, Jesse Jones, Kleb Woods. And then if you have one that you're doing that's not listed, it'll say other locations. And of course, check with somebody and make sure that's all right. And I think we have one more after this, and it's technical guidance. And that's providing free detailed natural resource management advice or assistance for natural resources. This is if you're helping somebody out, giving them detailed stuff. I do this a lot with the gardening stuff, helping them plant the right plants so they have native stuff. So, and that's it for all of our categories. Now there's, again, you may go through there and see something that we didn't have a lot of detail on, or so you can send me a message and I can answer questions. Has everybody logged on to the VMS account? Anybody have questions about it?
I did have a message from one of our interns about they can't remember their login password, and I asked them to just go ahead and email you directly.
Yes.
You can reset that password for them.
Yes, and I will try to come on these classes, and if there's questions or anything, I'll give you all time to ask them. It's fairly easy to use. It doesn't. It's laid out pretty good. So you just go to your volunteer dashboard and report your service, and everything comes up, and you put in your time. If you're doing research, I will say if you're doing field research, sometimes it'll say start date and end date of a project. So you'll put the beginning of your field research and the end of your field research. That would apply for like feeder watch, which is a weekend thing. So people do it from Saturday to Sunday. So you put those dates in there like that. I don't think there's many other projects like that, but there's a few that take 2 dates instead of one.
So we got a question from Kendra Park. She says some of us accumulated quite a few advanced training and volunteer hours during 2020 while waiting for our intern course to start. Does that count for our hours for certification for this year?
I think that's going to count towards your class now. So you will have to you'll have your initial training hours. And then after you finish your initial training hours, you need 40 hours and 8 hours of AT for your certification, correct? And then you could double certify for the year and get another 40 hours and 8 hours AT, and you get the certification pin for that year.
Right, but because they were waiting an extra year, they had the ability during last year to kind of pre-certify, and then they can double certify. So they could get last year's pin.
I don't know. I think, is that a Mary Pearl question?
I think that might be a Mary Pearl question.
That's a Mary Pearl question. So I think we need to ask Mary Pearl about that, since we had all these guys waiting in limbo.
That's right.
And maybe that could be an extra incentive, since y'all did have to wait. Hopefully she can approve that to happen, but we need to ask first.
That sounds
So,
good.
But I know that if you do get for your certification, now you'll have your intern hours, your 40 hours and 8 hours. That's your initial certification, and you get your first Dragonfly pin. Now, within this year, if you get another 40 hours, that's 80 hours of volunteer and 16 hours of AT, then you can recertify and get this year's pin. So
Mary Ramsauer says that she attended the conference, but she didn't know she could put those hours into the VMS. She's assuming that none of that counts since it's past 45 days.
yes, and we had 6 months to take those classes, and I think that 6 months is up. Are you talking about the October class?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
but I believe so, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I can double check on it. Of course, I'll email and I will find out, and I'll double check.
Just to make sure.
Yeah, just to make sure.
Dawn Brubaker, yes, it is a calendar year, January to December. So did you want to talk about water certification?
Yes, so if you do water certification, that's a little different. I will need to know if you are going to do it, because I need to mark that you're in process on VMS. If you're in the process and you're doing a class, at the bottom of your VMS, when you're logging in an opportunity, it'll have a little box at the bottom that says Texas Water Certification. So if you're working towards that, you'll have to check that box if it applies to that you're working with the water certification. So I believe to certify is at 10 hours volunteer work and 6 hours of AT. It's been a while.
I'm not sure what it is. I think Steve might know. Steve, do you have those numbers in your head? Because he's going through certification already. Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought Steve had certified.
So Texas Water Certification is a certification you can hold, and you can be a Texas water specialist. It's something separate from your class. And Terry MacArthur heads that program up. So she has a class. What do they meet? Once a month or every 2 weeks? Terry's class.
Terry's class meets every month. That's the watershed committee meeting. So that's
okay. So if anybody's interested in that, I can send you Terry's information and get you started on that. Also, you can go to Texas Parks and Wildlife, and they have it on their website. And you can read. I think you can download the textbook to your computer, so it's easy to read. You don't have to get a hands-on textbook, and they'll have everything there. They also have monthly advanced that they run on a Zoom meeting. And in fact, the next one is next Tuesday. So if you go on there, you can click on the link and add yourself to that class. So it's about an hour and a half or hour long. Melissa Alderson does an hour-long class every month. It's very informative. I'm a Texas water specialist. I enjoy it. I love learning all this stuff. It's just really fascinating.
Yeah, the initial requirement is 8 hours of training, and then you don't need to do any more advanced training after that, but you have to do 10 hours of volunteer work every year. And the year runs from September to August. It's not the calendar year.
That's right.
Right.
It's different.
So Terry has lots of volunteer opportunities on her committee. So you would get with her, but you can go to the website, click on their stuff, and you can watch the other webinars they had. You just can't count them as AT, but you can go back and watch them. They have them for years on there, and there's some really good ones, really good information on water conservation. I know Scott and them do a lot with this Lake Livingston, just tons of stuff that y'all can do under that specialist.
Yes. Okay, are there any other questions about putting hours? About the actual mechanics of putting your hours in. On our website, let me see if I can get to that. Oh yeah, here we go. Let me do this. So I can do share screen. There we go. Let me find that's a good screen to start from. Let me see if it lets me go over to our website. So Melissa, are you seeing the, here we go.
Yeah, I see your screen. Okay.
Let's go ahead and just do it from our screen. So this will be what everyone sees.
Yeah, when you go to our website, you can click on.
Here we go. If we go down to the bottom, right here, where, can you see that, Melissa?
Yes, I can. So that's where you click to record your hours.
Record hours. It'll pop up.
Yep, log in.
Again.
And there's your 6 icons. You will really use the report my service the most. And the view my logbook is where you can make corrections.
Yes.
And check things. You know, did I log something right? Did I log it incorrectly? Did I forget to check the Texas Waters box or any of that kind of stuff? And you can fix it before you claim it. So you can see all of those federal reporting codes. There is tons of them there. And I didn't pull them all up because they can get really confusing when you look at too many of them.
That's right.
That they're all there. And I know that everybody will go out there and they will have their place that they love to volunteer. And people really get into a routine. And, you know, we have the people that volunteer for Club Woods all the time or Bayou Land Conservancy. So they don't ever use every one of these codes.
Right.
There's so many, but you may go through that, look at that and say, oh, I really want to do the bluebird thing, or I want to do the hummingbird thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to do any of that and you want more information on it, then shoot me an email and I will get you the website or the contact person for it. And that way you can, you know, go learn how to do that. Coco Ross is another one, weather monitoring, and it counts as Texas Waters volunteer hours. You know, if there's anything on there you see that you want to do and it looks interesting, then send me an email and I'll help you find out how to go do that. And we do have a lot of stuff on our calendar too that connects to a lot of this that you see on VMS. I know that we try to put stuff out that people are doing monthly or weekly, stuff like that. Now I do know because of COVID that some of the things have sign up geniuses, so you'll have to go check into that. And I would give you all that information. So,
so it's not showing intern training on mine because I am not an intern. But it's going to show you, it's going to be right around here where it's going to say intern training. And that's where you're going to log yours, is where it has intern training. You'll log today. Okay.
Yes. And I went on to every one of your accounts and I made sure that you had everything on there. You should have 109 to 111 opportunities on your account. We add opportunities if something comes up and that's interesting to the chapter, we will add things.
Mm-hmm.
So
awesome, because I think we have.
Yes, Darla, that is the same. Initial training hours are that is yours. That's where you'll log this class at, Darla.
Okay. Back to volunteer dashboard, and this is view your logbook. So if you're logging in hours and you get to the point where you're logging in so many days in a row because you haven't done it for a while, which is what I do. I get into this verse where I'm like, I haven't recorded my hours, I better get to it. Then you can go in here and see which ones you've actually logged. So you can look for your for what date. If all of a sudden you're like, did I log that date? It's going to be in your logbook, and you just look through there to find it. And then if you don't see it, of course you log it.
And then if you make a mistake, and before they're ever approved, there's going to be a little gray box on the left-hand side of each that you logged. So if you messed up and you go to this page right here and you see that little gray box, you will click on it and then come over here to the delete selected record. And you can delete it, or you can edit selected record, and then you can fix it. And if you're worried about it, just send me an email and I can tell you how, or I can fix it. I like to tell you how, so you can learn how to fix it, and then it's easier. So mistakes will happen, and it's not a big deal. That's what I'm here to help you. So don't worry about if you make a mistake. I can easily fix it and help you, walk you through it. So don't worry about it. Don't let VMS freak you out. It's really easy once you get used to it and you get used to all the opportunities and getting out there. It doesn't take much. And again, we all work together. We'll make sure that you get everything you need, all the help you need with it. So
there's a really good question that that was asked about how many hours are there for this training. And on the curriculum, that the syllabus that was posted to the website and sent out by Scott, it lists the number of hours that we anticipate this class taking today and for each of the days following. Because we're doing, you never know if things are going to go too long or too short or whatever. That is going to be the minimum number of hours that you're going to record, is what's on that syllabus for today. If we go over, then you're going to record whatever we went over also. So let's say that we run short today. Let's say that we're so good at talking really, really fast and we get it all done in 3.5 instead of 4 hours. Then you would record 4 hours, because that was the time that we had set aside to do our presentations today. Let's say that we go to 4.5, 5 hours today because we had so many questions. You would record 4.5 to 5 hours. So what's listed on your syllabus is the minimum number of hours you're going to record for today. Okay. Was that as clear as mine? Did we do okay?
yes, that's good. And I watch everything, so I'm pretty good at knowing who was in class and everything, and I'll remind people to log hours if I need to. Just be vigilant.
Yeah.
Lisa, I see your message. You don't have that. So I will go in and check your information and send you a code. If you don't get it, please let me know. It'll probably be this evening when I sit down and go through everything and check y'all's hours. Again, I can't stress enough about, writing your hours down, keeping a log, and getting them reported on time. Have a, every 2 weeks, every week, whatever, set a date, log your hours. Because at first it is going to be a lot. You'll have class a lot, then you see things you want to do or go volunteer, and then you have the online advanced trainings that may come up that you want to take. And it's so easy to lose track of your hours. So if you write them down somewhere and then go log them, it works out really well. And before you know it, you'll have all your hours, because it's really easy, especially with all the Zoom meetings and everything. It's really easy to get your hours. And then we have beautiful places around us that you can go volunteer. We have so many opportunities.
So one of the things I wanted you to pay attention to was the edit my profile button on this, on the dashboard. If you move, if you get a new email address, if you get a new phone number, please, please, please make sure you edit your profile. I will call mine up for just a moment. Oh,
and Denise, I did not correct your thing yet. I was going to give you a chance to correct it. Do you think, let's see, oh, that's another question. Hang on. Do you think you can correct it on your own, or will you need my help?
I will try to correct it on my own now that you've given me some instruction. So if I mess up, please let me know.
it's not a big deal and we can fix it. So no, don't sweat it. There was a few that I didn't correct on VMS because I was waiting for class. And I emailed a few people and said, just wait and let's do the VMS class and then we can correct it that way. And it's easy for me to teach you how to do that. And I can talk to you on the phone or anything, just let me know. The process to get activities approved. So if you have an activity that's not on our list, then you want to contact Bruce if it's a advanced training and see if it's something that fits into the TMN guidelines. So it has to fit into our guidelines to be approved. Okay, so maybe you have a brand new thing that's not on there and it does get approved, then we can add the opportunity if it's something everybody's going to use. But if it's not something everybody's going to use, you may check AT specific program or special program specific thing. Let's see. Okay. And the same thing for other projects. If there's something else that's not on there, you will talk to Brenda about the other opportunities, right? So Brenda does the other ones and Bruce does the advanced training. And if it's something that looks good, it has to fit the TMN guideline. So I don't know if y'all talked about that yet. Y'all did? Okay. So we're under that stipulation. So make sure it fits in our guideline. And if it does, bring it to either Bruce or Brenda and we can get that approved. So every time we get new interns, everybody brings new things to the table. So sometimes we get something new and fun to do that we can add to our existing opportunities. So.
And it's nice too, because we find new things that in new areas that are with new partners that we hadn't considered before. And then we can actually advertise it to the entire chapter. And that's really nice to be able to offer new things for people to get involved with.
I think Carolyn Warstrom just brought the Beautify Montgomery County to us, and she goes out in her kayak and she picks up trash. Now she has to log that trash with the Montgomery County Beautification Program, but she can log her hours with us because it does fit within our guidelines. And we wouldn't have got that program if she wouldn't have went out and found it. So we welcome ideas that fit into our guidelines.
All righty.
Okay,
that looks good. Are there any other questions about, I know Valerie, you had a question about, do these fit into the three? Let me see if I can find it again. Into the three. Oh, I don't see that question anymore. Somebody did write, I was informed to put my invasive species AT under the wrong code. What is the correct code? If you took the invasive species class as part of the Woodlands Environmental Services, you can actually put it under that. So in some cases, there may be more than one place that's acceptable. And so if you put it under some place and Melissa looks at it and goes, you know, this really doesn't belong here, she will contact you or she'll correct it depending on, you know, what she thinks needs to happen. So, so don't sweat it.
In your description box, that will help me with my decision. So if you write something and I say, oh, that wasn't with that group, we need to put it over here with this group, I'll let you know, because that's the kind of stuff that gets a little confusing if two different agencies are doing stuff on invasives or such. So, but it's not a big deal. Like I said, we can get it all worked out. And again, you'll have my email information and I can help you with anything you know, that you think of later. You can just shoot me an email and I can help you with it. And before you know it, this will be really easy for you to use. And
it's not that difficult once you get your and just as Melissa said, you're going to get into a routine. You're going to find a place that speaks to you. You're going to find a project that speaks to you, and you'll be using that over and over again. So so don't let all of those codes stymie you. It's not that difficult to figure out kind of what we're aiming for and what you're going to be working on. And if you ever have questions, let's see. Okay, so the ones that from Mercer Botanic Gardens, Eric, they are having their May sale, and that is a very good example of things that do and don't count. For their May sale, a lot of people may be loading up carts with plants and things like that. Our job is not really to help run fundraisers. Our job is to educate, do resource management, and forgot what the third mandate was. It'll come to me in a second. I always get stuck on the last one. So if you're out there at the May sale and you know native plants and you're helping people by telling them, by educating them with the native plants and what plants would work in their gardens, you can include that. That counts for volunteer hours. If you're writing up tickets for people to buy their plants or loading plants into their cars, that doesn't count.
And
helping with traffic doesn't count.
No. So, and I think, what was it, Friends of Texas Wildlife, we talked about the OT there. So if you go there, there's certain things that you can claim and certain things you cannot claim.
Mhm.
So, and again, all of these places have volunteer program, actually, that you with us, but they have their own programs. So they will give you all that advice when you go there and take their stuff too. So even Mercer has their own training thing, and Club Woods has their training thing, and Texas Friends of Texas Wildlife has their training program. So they will give you a lot of information too, what you can and cannot do.
There's also the, oh, I'm sorry. There's also so let's say that you're at Mercer and you're doing something that you can't claim for us. Mercer has a fabulous volunteer appreciation banquet that they hold twice a year. So those hours would count for Mercer, but you just can't record them with us. So Mercer has people sign in. If you're going to claim it as Texas Master Naturalist hours, they want you to write TMN next to your name. So they know that they can't record those hours as, because that would be double dipping.
Double dipping. And we need to talk about that for state parks too, real quick.
Okay, go for it, Melissa.
Okay, so if you volunteer at a state park, say like Huntsville State Park, they're going to have a separate guideline. So when you go onto your VMS account, at the top, it may say Huntsville State Park. I volunteer at Brazos Bend State Park, so at the top of my VMS, it says Brazos Bend State Park. I can't count those as Texas Master Naturalist hours because the state park is getting that funding, and they too get $23 an hour for every hour we volunteer. And in most cases, like Brazos Bend, it takes all the volunteers there take up 17 employees. So they don't have to hire 17 employees. They have all the volunteers doing the work, but you cannot claim that under the Texas Master Naturalist program. So it's going to go under TPWD, but it's not going to be under our stuff. So if you're one of those people that are doing Huntsville State Park or any of the other state parks, then it'll go under theirs, which will be attached to your VMS account.
Mm-hmm.
So we just can't double dip, and they get in a lot of trouble. Somebody has to pay it back. We don't want to get in trouble.
We don't want them to get in trouble and have to pay things back.
Now,
So
if you're going out in a different capacity, and you're going out there as a Texas Master Naturalist, that's different. Okay,
Yeah.
you wear your Texas Master Naturalist stuff, and you go out there and you do whatever you're going to do, whether you're doing trail interpretation or whatever. You can do that, but you just can't do both.
Right.
You
at
can't
the
log
same
both.
time.
Not
Yeah.
at the same time.
Awesome. Okay. Any more questions? Is our data on
Open.
TMN subject to Texas Open Records? I don't know. I don't think that would be something that they would. But that's a good question. That is a very good question.
Rosalind, I don't think there's a larger TPWD VMS site. It's all the same. I mean, it will be. If you're a Texas Master Naturalist, your stuff for TPWD will be on your VMS account. Now, if you're not a Texas Master Naturalist, then you're just logging your stuff for that state park. It doesn't log into ours. So it just gets added to yours. So if you do volunteer somewhere else, Rosalind, you will see it come up on your VMS account.
Okay. Right. So each person, not each park, has a VMS account.
Yes.
Right.
TPWD, okay,
It's
if you're
the
at a
overarching.
park, they have
Mhm.
another VMS person.
Mhm.
So each park has their own VMS person, their admin person, which is usually the head ranger. So they keep up with that. And you can see it on your account if you're at those parks. And if you need help, let me know. I can help you with it.
Yeah. So Wade Chapman has a very good question. He wants to know where we can get the shirts. When you graduate, you will get a shirt. That's part of your goodies that you get. You will get a shirt that actually says Texas Master Naturalist. I can show you.
I have mine on too, and you can order these online at the TMN webpage. They have a store.
Yes, and we are going to, we're going to give you on Friday. So, and what was I going to tell you? Oh, if you go to the Texas AgriLife bookstore online, let me call that up. I can share a screen again, and we just.
They have quite a few different shirts on there. Do you have one of the ones with the stuff on the back, or no? Oh, you can pull it up. Okay.
Yeah, let's pull that bad boy up.
And while we're on here, they have fascinating books on here too, and they're having a book sale. So
oh, they have such cool stuff.
The Butterfly Garden book is amazing. The Butterfly Host book is amazing. There's so many things.
So many things you can get. The Rare Plants of Texas is gorgeous. You're also going to get a lanyard when you graduate, so don't bother getting one of those. But there's 5 pages of really cool stuff in here. And let's see if I can, there we go. They've got huge men's auxiliary canvas work jackets, and this neck wrap is beautiful. The face mask is gorgeous. So all of these things that they have in here are other shirts that they've put back in stock. So yeah, there's some pretty great ways to spend money on here. So I keep looking to see if they have the caps back in, and they don't. So, but yeah.
They change that out because they have different shirts and stuff that they'll put in, and it seems like they do a rotation, but they'll let you know when they have them.
The caps are back. Okay, good. All right. I'm going to definitely save that because yeah, I want a cap. So yeah, they've got really beautiful stuff in here that you can, get all decked out and be ready to do. But like Melissa said, there's going to be stuff that you get when you graduate. So
yeah, you'll have your shirt and a lanyard for your pens, and you'll get a name tag.
Yes, you get a name tag. Wait, let me see if I can.
Little name tags, and
here we go. So I can see what I'm doing.
If you want to add to your collection, this page is wonderful to pick up extra stuff. Now, if we have an annual meeting this year, generally they have the shirts and stuff at the annual meeting, and they'll have different ones as well.
Yeah. The big question this year is whether they're going to have the annual meeting in person or do it virtually. Usually when it's in person, they get about 200, 250 people show up. Last year, it was all virtual. It was well over 1,000 because Texas is so massive. All the people who wouldn't travel to a really far-flung place from them came online. So having it online has been really a great opportunity for a lot of people who wouldn't be able to attend otherwise. Yes, and they recorded all the sessions, and we were able to view those sessions and actually count that as advanced training even after the meetings had taken place. That's one of the concessions they made to the fact that we weren't able to meet in person.
I kind of hope for the future we have it both ways, so we can serve those that can't make it. It just, it's an amazing thing. So
it's awesome to be there too, but I'm telling you,
it's so much fun. The field sessions are great. If you get to go out on the field sessions, and it's a lot of fun, you learn a lot. Those are the favorite things.
Yes.
Of the annual meetings is the field sessions. So.
Okay. Let's see if there's
any more questions on VMS. Or are y'all good? I don't want to take up more time. I know we have another speaker. What is that?
Do we try to wear naturalist gear when volunteering as an intern?
You have an intern name badge, right? Or no, we didn't give those to them, did we?
We didn't give them out because we didn't get to meet with them. But you know, that's a good idea because I have them all. I have
So in the past, you had an intern name tag. So when you went out to the public, you were in training, you had your intern name tag. And I'm sure that we could figure out a way to get those to everybody at one of our pen pickups.
That with the
And then
pen
you
pickup.
would have your name tag when you go out. And if you have a shirt or something, that's great. You want to pick up a shirt on AgriLife until you get your shirt, because you get your shirts at graduation. So yeah, and that's what they look like. So, and we can definitely have that on one of the pen pickups if anybody wants to swing by and pick up name tags.
That
So,
sounds like a great idea. Thanks for thinking of that.
yeah, and so you would wear that, and that lets everybody know you're in training. And then when you're done, you just file that away and you get a real name tag at graduation.
Yes. Yeah. All the good stuff. Okay. So how are we doing on time, Scott? We still doing okay? Oh,
I don't know where Scott went.
I don't hear him. He's here and he's unmuted, but I'm not hearing him.
Okay, so he's here. I don't know who is next, so.
Yeah. Let's see if Scott gives us the scoop.
Gwen.
Gwen is next. Okay, let's.
Okay, well, thanks everybody. And again, you'll have my email if you need anything, have any questions, just let me know.
Thanks
Y'all
so
have a great
much,
day.
Melissa.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, I will go get, let me go ahead and put Gwen as a presenter. Let me find my Gwen. Gwen Lanning, there she is. Oop, I lost her again. Come on, go down.
Okay, is my level okay?
There, oh, you did great, Gwen. I see you. Hey, darling.
And can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you perfectly. This is awesome.
I can't hear anybody over here. What do I do? I can't.
Yeah, we had to turn that speaker on.
Okay, I got it.
You
Can
got it? Okay.
Yeah. All right, are you ready for me to start?
I am so ready. Are you ready to share screen and everything?
Yeah.
Okay, let me make sure I've got you so that you can share screen. That's fine. Gwen again. It's Gwen. Oh, you're right here. Well, yeah. Let's see if I can. Does it show share screen at the bottom of your page?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
did. There we go. You're
Okay.
perfect. Perfect.
All right.
Good. Good.
All right.
Let me know when you need me to launch a poll, okay?
Oh, okay. You have them ready to go.
I have them ready to go.
Okay. So I can just start talking? I haven't done this before.
Okay.
All right. All right. Well, I'm Gwen Lanning, and I became a Texas Master Naturalist in 2009. And I'm going to present today on the historic naturalists of Texas, and then a little bit on the land ethic. So let me see if this works. I'll click myself here. All right. When I do this in person, I start off by asking people in a sentence or two, just tell me something from nature that you remember. So today, if you could put it in the chat so everybody can see a little something about you and your experience with nature. And these are my examples. I live on a farm and I have chickens. And so one day I looked up and this mockingbird was just jumping up and down on the chicken hutch. And I looked and realized that a big rat snake was trying to get in, and it looked like just part of the woodwork, but the mockingbird alerted me. And I had never seen that before, that one species would communicate like that. And then another time, my husband and I got to go to Smith Oaks Rookery, and we saw all the nesting roseate spoonbills, snowy egrets and all their babies. And if you haven't been there, the viewing stand is opposite a waterway. And one of the roseate spoonbills just flew right up, right next to me, and I got some really good pictures. So if you can take a minute and put your memory in the chat. And then I'm gonna go on. This is a map from 1816 showing, you can see the eastern part of the United States is well marked, but in Texas, they really didn't know what was going on. They thought that there were a lot of mountain ranges. This is zooming in on just Texas. And I know it's hard to see on a small screen, but the Brazos River and the Colorado River are marked pretty well, but there's many mythical mountain ranges in the eastern part of Texas. So when we think back to the history of the naturalists in Texas, of course, we know the Native Americans were the first naturalists, but unfortunately, information was lost about how they related to nature. In your manual, there's a really good chapter on it in the archaeology unit. So I'm not going to talk about that today. Then after that, the Spaniards got here, and we have a quote from 1541 where Coronado described the Llano Estacado, but mostly the Spaniards were just interested in using the land as a resource, getting what money they could. They were looking for silver mines, gold mines, and they didn't really care about the natural resources as much. So I'm going to jump ahead in time a little more, and we're going to start about 200 years ago. And this slide is just for reference if you're can't remember the Six Flags of Texas and who had Texas when. Those dates are here. And then in their manual, when they talk about the historic naturalists, they focused on those whose efforts were extensive, but also the ones who contributed to our modern understanding of flora and fauna. And this, again, this is just if you're like, when was Lewis and Clark? You can look at this slide. So I'm going to start about 200 years ago in 1827. And to set the stage, in 1815, Napoleon had died. 1819, Alabama was the 22nd state. 1824, Beethoven premiered his 9th symphony. 1825, the Erie Canal opened. And cost of living, a large frying pan cost about 68 cents in their money. A 10-gallon kettle was about $1.75, and $1 then would be worth about $25 today. And then we have this lovely picture of what ladies of Philadelphia would wear to promenade in the afternoon and for their evening wear. So this is kind of where we were in the world. Steamboats were being used. In 1807, the Clermont had gone up the Hudson River, becoming the first commercially viable steamboat. And depending on the source that you read, by the 1830s, there were about 1,200 steamboats going up and down the Mississippi. And some of our naturalists got here by steamboat. As far as trains, this picture shows the Rocket, which was a locomotive that won a contest in England in 1829. And when they won, then they built like a 1-mile circle, and they would charge people a shilling to take this. It's almost like a circus ride. And in the US, the Baltimore and Ohio had 13 miles of track, but they were still using horse-drawn carts. So trains were still a ways off in 1830. And as far as health, when I first put this presentation back together in 2017, it was like, oh, cholera, oh, pandemics, those never happen anymore. But this picture has a new meaning for me now. Bacteria and viruses as causes of disease were still unknown. There were 2 theories of how disease was spread. Some thought it was by physical contact, and others were blaming dangerous air, nighttime vapors, and they called that a miasma, and the plural miasmata. So that sort of sets the stage, and we had a lot going on. There were struggling empires, there were inventions, there was the Industrial Revolution, factories were going up, there was epidemics. And at this time, various universities and governments thought that they wanted to explore unknown regions and find out the plants, and they want to send military people to mark borders, and then they send out somebody like this on every expedition, this mild-mannered naturalist. And I used to work at a historical park. I spent 5 years living in 1830, but I still had such a modern mindset that to me, the idea of sending a naturalist with these expeditions just seemed like that's somebody extra. That's luxury to send somebody like that. I did not realize that in this time, everything came from plants, animals, minerals. Not only your food and your clothing, but medicine, dyes, construction materials. And so everybody who was sending out an expedition really, really wanted to know what plants and other things were in the areas as they explored. So what they had to do back then was gather physical samples, dry them and preserve them and keep them, and then ship them back east. The naturalists that we're going to talk about, their job was to collect and preserve the specimens, and then they would just send them off back to the east, and somebody else would do the actual cataloging and deciding if this was a new species or not. These are some of the physical specimen labs or collections that are still with us. This is herpetology at University of Texas. Some beetles from the Harvard collection. Ichthyology, mammalogy at Cornell. And again, I would think, okay, why do we have these physical specimens taking up space? Why can't we just go to a nice photograph, a nice scan, a nice written description? But the physical specimens are still very important. If you look at the birds on the left, they're all from about 1900, and the birds on the right were collected 60 to 100 years later. So again, that was counterintuitive for me that the earlier birds were so much dirtier than the birds that were collected more recently. And you can also see that here with various species, where the one now on the right is the earlier bird and the one on the left is more close to our times. So from these physical specimens, the difference was coal-fired factories. And so that caused all these birds from 1900 to show the effects of pollution that had cleaned up in our time. If we didn't have these physical specimens, we wouldn't know that. And nowadays they can also get DNA from the physical specimens, so they're still important. So when we think about these naturalists, the logistics of what they did, you don't need a lot of equipment to get plant samples. They needed something to cut with, something to dig with, something to store the samples, and then specialized drawing paper to press the samples. One of our naturalists found that his specimen box was also the best way of scaring off bears when he was up in Canada. He would shake the specimen box and then the bears would leave, and he had better luck with that than with a gun. So this is some of the equipment that a naturalist would need to travel across Texas and get all the specimens. They needed gallons of alcohol or to preserve the specimens, arsenic for preserving the animal skins, the specialized absorbent paper for fresh plant specimens, and stiff paper for the plants to be mounted on once they were dry, plant presses, copper containers, so on and so on. This is a container that was used in 1841 by one of the naturalists we're going to talk about, Berlandier. And what is in there is little dried insects called cochineal that live on prickly pear and give you a red dye. So just imagine having to transport glass containers around with your specimens. They did not have the lovely guidebooks that we have today. We can take a picture on our phone and send it to iNaturalist, and they will tell us what we're looking at or give us some clues, or we can compare pictures in guidebooks. But in the time of these early naturalists, maybe they would get a book like this with a lovely hand-colored print. But mostly it was just pages and pages of technical terms, Latin, and they would have had to study this before they set out and know it and keep it in their mind, coming to a totally strange place. And then they would look at a place like the picture on the left, and they would have to quickly tell themselves as they traveled along, do I need this specimen? Did I collect this plant yesterday or last week? Is this little plant different than that little plant? And then they would dry and mount the specimens and have them in the press, and then think about trying to get all this stored material in a little wagon like this when you're crossing the prairie with an expedition. Some of the other problems that they faced was the geography of Texas. You could be on a little creek bed like this one afternoon and camp or set your plant samples down or decide you're going to dry some plants. And then the next day, this is what's happened to your creek bed. And then you also had a problem with just the nature of wildlife. Your big animals, mammals, carnivores, they're going to be wary. They're not going to come out where you can see them. Some animals fly, like you wouldn't necessarily know what bats were even in the area. So for that, they had to look at evidence of the animals, the holes, the dens, nests, feathers, bones. These are turtle eggs that the shells, another creature has already found them. Tracks, sheds, like you could find shed skins or antlers. And of course, poop. You can see all the good bone fragments in this. So now I'm going to talk about a few of the naturalists, just a few of the individuals that I think are particularly interesting. This is going back, this is that 1816 map again. And I'm going to start with Jean-Louis Berlandier, and I have to say that I'm not positive I'm pronouncing his name correctly. So if you know better, please let me know. He was born about 1805 in France into a poor family, and he moved to Geneva, Switzerland, and apprenticed himself to a pharmacy company. And he started studying plants at Geneva University with Auguste de Candolle. And they wanted to explore the plants in what was Mexico at the time. So he was young, he was unattached, so they sent him. And he landed near Tampico, and he stayed in Mexico for a year while money for the expedition was gathered. And that's because Mexico had recently gotten independence from Spain. So they had big ideas of what they wanted to do, but they didn't necessarily have the money to do it. So they had to wait. If you think about that map of 1816 and how inaccurate it was, as Berlandier traveled, he mapped places that he went and he drew the landforms. And he ended up following what's now the Camino de Tejas National Historic Trail. So they crossed at Laredo on February 2, they went up to Bihar, and they were over in the Navasota area by May 16th. And while he was there, he got malaria and he was very sick. So he got as far as Holland Creek. If you know where that is, I cross that all the time, and I always think of Mr. Berlandier being there. He was so sick that he got sent back to Bayar while the others went to Nacogdoches. And during this time, he sent back 55,000 specimens. By his count, it was 2,320 different plants. They were received in Geneva and cataloged as 2,351 separate plants, but they passed around word that they didn't really think Berlandier had done a good job, and the money they had expended on him, they didn't get a good value. So these are some of the plants that he found. And oh, this is one of the ones I love. One of the difficulties would be, how do you record the location of the plant when there's not even a town? What is your landmark? So this one says it was collected between Laredo and Bayar. You know, we could find that plant easily, right? Lisa's gonna go find it. And this one is the Texas Green Eyes, which was named for him. So word got back to Berlandier that the people in Switzerland were saying that he didn't do a good job. So he just never went back. He stayed in Texas. And for the next about 20 years, he just stayed here, and he gathered data on weather, geology, and Indians. And he worked as a doctor. He married a local woman. And he died crossing the flooded river down by Matamoros in 1851. And fortunately, an Army officer knew of his collection, purchased it from the widow, and then passed it on to the Smithsonian, because otherwise it would have all been lost. These are some of his illustrations, his drawings. He was also interested in all the things about the Indian way of life and collected their artifacts. And these are just the things that we have manuscripts on, things that he kept records on. Astronomical, barometrical. I didn't even know what this was. Cyanometrical, which is he recorded what the sky looked like every day. And all this would have been lost. Right now, the Smithsonian has about 8 cubic feet of these records. Some are also at Harvard, but very little of it has been digitized. You just can't find it. And this is a Rio Grande leopard frog named for him, and the Texas tortoise. So coming a little bit closer to our time, this is an 1833 map. This was in a book published by Mary Austin Hawley, and it shows who owned which league of land. And if you look at that and just think what huge, huge amounts of land were assigned to individuals that would then subdivide them and sell parts of them. But it's a lot more accurate than the previous map. And so the next naturalist I'm going to talk about is Thomas Drummond, and he's just one of my favorites. There were 5 generations of naturalists and botanists in his family. He was from Scotland. We don't know much about his early childhood and education, but before he came to Texas in 1825, he went to explore Western Canada, and he was there for over 2 years, walking and canoeing through miles and miles of Canada. In the winter, he would find a camp somewhere with just one Indian who was supposed to go out hunting to provide food for him. But a lot of times he'd just be by himself for months at a time in a brush hut with no books or companionship. He had one time when they were traveling that they had no food. So he had to take the mammal skins that he had prepared to send back to the museums and universities. He had to feed those to the sled dogs so that they could still have transportation. And so this was a guy who knew what he was doing. He put up with a lot of hardship, but when he got to Texas, he just got here in a bad year. It was 1833. And not only it was a cholera epidemic, and then it was an El Nino year. So they had a huge floods. They called it the Great Overflow. And he had the problem that he had packed up samples, getting them ready to ship. And when he got to Brazoria, where he had left them, the whole town was overflowed. The boarding house floor was covered with water a foot deep. About 1/3 of the plants collected on my route were destroyed by the overflowing of the river. I have never witnessed such devastation. It has extended even 200 miles up the river than this place. And then there was cholera. So he was staying in a very small community that only had 4 houses. One house, nobody got sick, but in the other houses, 10 people died, 9 of them within 12 hours of coming down with cholera. He got it. He dosed himself with opium and survived, but then there was no one to provide food. There was no one left to go out and get food or cook food. So that was a problem for the whole community at that time. So those things together kind of made him tired of Texas. And he wrote this to Dr. Sir Hooker, who was his sponsor from the University of Glasgow. You may form an idea of the difficulties I have to encounter in this miserable country, more miserable, however, as to its inhabitants than in any other respect, when I tell you that all the bird skins I sent you were removed with a common old penknife, not worth 2 cents, and that even this shabby article I could not have kept had the natives seen anything to covet in it, and I'm obliged to leave behind my blanket and the few clothes I have brought because of the difficulty in carrying them, though I feel pretty sure I shall never see them again. So we have 2 written accounts, people who met Thomas Drummond. Mary Austin Holly wrote about him, and a German writer named Detlef Dent wrote about him, and they both said he was charming. So he let his real feelings come out in his letters back home to the university, to his sponsor. But even with all this, he did say he was going to come to Texas and bring his family here, get a league of land, get some cattle, and he hoped to live here. And then he was in Cuba just a few years later and died in Cuba while he was collecting. So he never did come live in Texas. And one of the plants that is named for him is the little wild onion. So if you're a parent or a teacher, kids bring you these little wild onions out of the yard, and they're named for Mr. Drummond. And then a third person who fit this same pattern of being educated in Europe or the East, coming to Texas and having a lot of difficulties was Charles Wright. He was born in Connecticut and graduated from Yale. He came down to Texas to become a teacher at Rudersville, which still looks pretty much probably like it did in 1830. There's not much in Rudersville. He started collecting plants, and he sent some samples to Asa Gray at Harvard. And Asa Gray was telling him, well, you should do this systematically. So this is Asa Gray in 1848, back at Harvard, his lovely lab, specimen room, library. He was corresponding with people all over the country to get the Harvard collection built up. And he got Charles Wright in 1848, a position on the US-Mexico boundary survey. They were going to go from San Antonio to El Paso and back. However, the military said, well, we only made a deal to transport your trunk and paper. We didn't say anything about feeding you. And so Charles Wright had to walk 673 miles to El Paso in the summer and collect all the way. And then this is what San Antonio looked like in 1857. Enchanted Rock, Pedernales. So he's walking across this kind of terrain and trying to get somebody to feed him. And the officers are saying, we would love to feed you, but then we'd have to feed everybody who asked. And the common men were like, no, we already have too much trouble lugging your stupid stuff around. So he just was out of luck. No one would socialize with him. I guess he must have just caught himself a rabbit every now and then and put it on a stick and roasted it himself. The plant that we probably have all seen a million times that is named for him is the goldenrod, and also this coreopsis. Now, there were other people who came that were more individualists, that for one reason or another, they came to Texas, got into collecting insects. Carolyn, they were insect people. And to live independently, some of them just made deals with universities back east that for 100 plants or so many bugs, they would get $8. And that was what they lived on. This is the Heilig-Brote collection, part of that. Gideon Lincecum was very interesting. He had only a few months of education, but he educated himself, and he was known for paying long and intense attention to small things. And he also was very interested in the Indians and their medicinal use of plants and wrote books about that. And Lindheimer was another one who was educated in Germany, but just came here to farm, got interested in botany, and he would take a cart like this and go out for months by himself with just his mule and wagon, a gun, and 2 dogs collecting, and then would sell the collections independently. And we know him for the prickly pear, Texas prickly pear. So now this is 1891, and rail lines are starting to crisscross Texas, but there's still a lot of unexplored Texas. And Mary Sophie Young is not mentioned in this edition of the manual. When I became a Texas Master Naturalist in 2009, this section of the manual was 95 pages, literally, and dozens of people were mentioned on each page. And your manual's a lot better. They've honed it down to maybe 30 people. But they left out Mary Sophie, and as a woman, I have to speak to the women scientists. She was a woman who had taught at University of Texas, went out all over Austin and collected plants. And then in 1914, she went out to West Texas, and she's pictured here. She was about 42, and they thought a woman should not go out alone. So another professor at UT, Benjamin Tharp, had a younger brother who kind of needed to concentrate on his studies. So they sent him, Carrie Tharp, out with her, and he was supposed to study math while she went out and collected the plants. So she was still using burros and wagon, but the difference being 1914, people did not know how to drive burros anymore. And she had a lot of trouble with that. And she started off in Marfa. This is what the view is like around there. This is the area she went through. She went all the way, Marfa, Fort Davis. She went down to Candelaria. This is what it looks like. She would just walk around. She had grown up with brothers and always told them that she would not hold them back if she got to go exploring with them. So she'd go out for the day with an apple, and she would just drink out of a puddle or stock tank or whatever she could find. And this is one of the plants that's named for her. In 1961, Benjamin Tharp, well, Mary Sophie died, I believe, in 1919. She was very young when she died. She had cancer. So 40 years after she went, Benjamin Tharp knew that we needed to remember that. And he went and looked at all the places she had been, took photographs, and they published the journal that she wrote on the trip. And it's great reading. She writes about the trouble she had finding dinner, the trouble with the burros, and it's really fun to read, and it's all available online. So getting back to society, this is 1880s. Moving on from Mary Sophie to someone who became more of an activist. And women were wearing entire birds on their heads. 5 million birds a year were being massacred. The people did not wait till feathers dropped on the ground. They went and hunted them. They didn't care if they were on the nest. They would not think, okay, we need to leave the nestlings or make sure that another generation comes up. They just go get them all. So these are some of the birds that were being lost to the feather trade. And then this is Florence Merriam Bailey on the right. She was very young. She wrote the book Birds Through the Opera Glass when she was 26. So people didn't have binoculars back then. She was one of the first to tell people that they could look at their local birds and study them. She wrote 2 books, A Birding on a Bronco, Birds of Village and Field, and these were the first popular American bird guides that had simple field keys for identification. So this is a page from her book where you could look and go, well, I know that bird had a lot of red on it. And she would give you a key to help you find what bird you were looking at. So I don't know, with the earlier naturalists, we don't know, or I don't know what their intentions were towards our resources, what their attitudes were, whether they thought things should be conserved, or if they just were like, well, I'm just here to tell you what's here and you do what you want with it. Florence Merriam Bailey definitely stepped into the conservation field and convincing people to stop killing birds and to start just watching birds. So these naturalists gave us so much. They overcame so many difficulties, but there is still so much we don't know. A couple of years ago, I went to a workshop on moss, and an instructor from A&M was leading it. And he said, there is no baseline on moss. People just don't study moss. We think that it's important to know for climate change where it is and where it will grow next, but we can't tell because there's no baseline. There's just so many things that have still not been studied. And to me, that's where all of us master naturalists come in. Whatever little bit we can contribute is going to help science and conservation. Okay, so that's that one. And then I'm going to go on to the land ethic, but is there anything I need to address first? Do you see anything, Lisa? No. Okay.
Do you want me to drop the poll in right now?
Oh, yes, you can drop a poll.
Let's drop a poll.
Are you seeing, like I see in my window? Like, okay, good. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Good.
Naturalist.
I can look at that. Okay. Oh.
Here we go. We've got the historic naturalist questions up. So if y'all could answer some of those questions. We've got, it's going good, 100% getting it right. You did a good job, Gwen. Awesome.
You ready for me to go ahead? Okay. Oh, thanks. Okay, thanks.
We have a question from Bala about whether or not there's a documentary about any of these people out there for us to watch.
Sadly, my favorite, Mary Sophie Young, I have a blog where I write about nature things, and I wrote about her. So University of Texas contacted me, and they were thinking of doing a 100-year celebration of her birthday, but it never happened. And that was a few.
Ah,
Yeah, I've written to Texas Highways. I think it would be an excellent article, but they've never written about her. So, but oh, I forgot to say, and this is what I love, is on the Internet Archive, which is just archive.org, I believe. You put in the names of these people, and through the glories of digitation, we can read the primary sources. We can read what Thomas Drummond said and what Charles Wright wrote. And, you know, I love to just go back and look at the old botanical magazines with the beautiful hand-colored plates. And just an awesome resource and very pleasant reading before you go to bed, like Birding on a Bronco. You're troubled, reading Florence Miriam Bailey's books about watching vireos and stuff will take your mind out of your troubles too.
I love what Mary Sophie wrote about chewing on a rabbit.
Yeah.
That was pretty funny. Definitely needs to be served
Economical.
with toothpicks. That is too funny. That was very good. Okay. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end the polling. It looks like most people said that drying paper is what they would bring. And so that is definitely, Gwen, the right answer, right?
Yes, yes. Thomas Drummond brought 2 tons.
2 tons of drying paper.
Yeah.
That's some hauling some stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
Awesome. Let's see if there's, yep, ready for the land ethic.
Okay. All right. Let me go back to how to do this. Yeah, is that working?
Yep, that's working.
Oh.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Oh, I don't want it to. Yeah, hang on. Let me go back. I thought I had set these timings to not
progress.
go on automatic. All right, for this part, I'm not gonna, for the first few, I'm gonna just do it with the side showing. All right, so again, we look at the Texas Master Naturalist Program's mission to develop a core of well-informed volunteers to provide education, outreach, and service dedicated to the beneficial management of natural resources and natural areas within their communities for the state of Texas. All right, and since Texas has so many different regional areas, beneficial land management practices are going to look different in the different places and done by different people. Some people, if they consider what's best for the land, would say, well, we could return it all to when the buffalo roamed. And some people say, no, just let nature take their course, and Yopon and Chinese tallow trees can take over the world, and that's fine. But no matter what your idea of beneficial practices is, I think we can all agree that this doesn't even show, this is not close to a beneficial practice. My husband and I live in the northwest corner of Montgomery County, and this went in across the street from us. People bought a strip of 7 acres. They cleared it like this overnight down to the bare ground, and then they dug trenches and they set it on fire. And neighborhood people went and asked them what they were planning to do. And they said, well, a Louisiana company has bought this 7 acres. We're going to clear pipelines and bring in whatever doesn't belong on the pipeline, and we're going to burn it here 24/7. And they thought, well, we're out in the country. These people don't know any better. But on our street, we had 2 environmental consultants and a fire marshal. And so they knew that that is not legal in Texas. And the land changed hands. Some very nice people live there now. But it really alerted me to being aware of what's on my own property. This is not a beneficial practice. With 95% of Texas being held in private lands, we're all needed to manage land well. So Texas Master Naturalist has set their 2 goals of beneficial land management as diversity, which is the variety of species, and a variety within species, like you would want to see different aged individuals within a population, and sustainability, using a resource without depleting or permanently damaging it. And this map is in your manual, and it shows that 17% of Texas land is developed and 83% rural. And of the population, about 86% lives in the urban or developed areas. Only 10% live in the rural areas, and less than 1% actually own land in the rural areas. So this is where I get to say I'm in the 1%, because I actually do have 2 places. Like I said, we have a place in Montgomery County that has been in my husband's family since 1960. And then we have a place out in the far west of the hill country that we've had for 20 years. So as I'm going to talk about the land management and the land ethic in Texas, I'm just putting myself out as an example to hopefully help you think about things that you can do. And one of the things I really like about the Master Naturalist program is that although the manual, when they talk about land management, they are directing a lot of it to big landowners. They're talking about moving your herds of cattle and doing your controlled burns. And a lot of us don't have that much land, or maybe live in an apartment. But the thing I love about Master Naturalists is that they stress that any change you can do helps. If you have one native plant in a pot on your apartment balcony, that's a food resource that a butterfly would not have found otherwise. If you can go to your local park and help them do a count of what's there, that's information they wouldn't have had otherwise. One of the volunteer things that I do is with Texas Plants of Texas Rangeland Database. And I am not a botanist. I don't know plants, but I know Photoshop. So I can crop the pictures and increase contrast in what they need and not tie up a staff member to do that. So these things that they write about land management and what we need to do, we can all do something. And no matter how small it is, it helps. So what this is going to do next, let's see. Okay, this is a shot of our place. So where we are, the piney woods are giving way to the post oak savanna, and we have trees and we have pasture. And the great teacher about the land ethic was Aldo Leopold, and you're going to hear about him continually throughout these classes. And he said, we abuse land because we see it as a commodity belonging to us. When we see land as a community to which we may belong, we may use it with love and respect. And this is from the manual. The role of Texas Master Naturalists is to begin their studies of the natural world found here in Texas and continue their study of nature by delving into these elements, all while keeping in mind the interconnectedness of the natural world. And so here I would like to say something I had heard at one meeting one time, that when it came to training, like you should only go to trainings of things that you thought you were going to use in the future, which is like the opposite of what Scott said as far as volunteering and dipping into all different kinds of projects and seeing what you like. And it's the same when we moved up to our place. I didn't know, I knew yopons, live oaks, and pine trees, and that's about all I knew. I didn't know the plants. As I got interested in birds and butterflies, I got interested in the plants that they need. You don't know what you need to know. That's what I used to tell my kids when I taught. And I would say take the training in anything you're interested in. You don't know, everything's connected. You don't know how you'll find your interests connecting and how you can connect them to another person. What I do at our place is I have tried very hard to learn everything that's there and to document everything that's there for the future. I don't know, hopefully it'll go down in our family, but if it ever became a nature center or something, I would want them to know what was here and when it was here. And so for this next part, I'm just going to show you a little bit of what I have documented at just our place. This is going to play automatically now. It's about 7 minutes long, and you can kind of look at it with a naturalist eye and go, do we have this species? Have I seen this species before? And I purposely did not put the names of the species because I just want you to enjoy them, but I know what most of them are now. So let me get this going. Okay, so that finishes that part, and this shows you, I think I had 41 species here of birds in the presentation, and I've seen 101 different species at home, et cetera. That's how this slide is for. So I hope that just shows you how much nature is still with us. We've lost a lot, of course, but we still have a lot, and it all needs help. So I'm looking forward to meeting all of you and reading your memories in the chat. And that's all I have.
That was gorgeous. Gwen, what kind of camera are you using?
I go through a camera about every 2 years, all the bridge cameras. So I've had Panasonic Lumix and Canon PowerShots, but they have about a 65 times zoom is what I'm using. And then I Photoshop a lot to crop it down. I get all the boring stuff out.
So beautiful. Oh my gosh. Yes, that was amazing. And a lot of those are on your blog, right?
Yeah.
Oh, so gorgeous. Wow. Yeah. And I need to up my game. I definitely need to up my game. So some of the comments you are the stories that you generated when you first started asking about, let's see, there was one that I thought was really good. The one that was about chasing down a baby duck in a parking lot and rescuing it. I think Denise said that that's what she did. Oh, Sue Klein said that she had 20 praying mantis nests hatch in her bedroom at the same time when she was about 5.
Oh my gosh.
Had you collected those, Sue, and decided that would be a good idea? Or just did somebody give those to you at 5 and say, here you go? This looks like something you want to play with.
My dad had been out trimming the ligustrum bushes,
Uh-huh.
and we found all of these things and we didn't know what they were. And I was a collector of anything natural, and I had a plastic jug that I stuck them all in to make kind of a floral arrangement as a 5-year-old would. And about a week before they hatched, my mom had a National Geographic, and it was a whole story on praying mantis. And she's like, oh, look, I think this is what you've experienced, you've got in your room. And within a week, I woke up and I literally had 1 million bugs up the walls, across the ceiling, coming up the covers. And I woke up to these things crawling on me. And I screamed, and my mom opened the door and assessed the situation and closed the door, left me in the room, and stood outside going, it's okay, you're fine.
But I'm not coming in.
All over the house.
What a good mom.
What a mom. Oh my God. I can't imagine having that many. I had one hatch out next to me one time, and I could see something out of the corner of my eye moving, and it was on a table next to me. And when I turned, all those little heads track you. And there's like 1,000 of them come out of each egg case. So to have 20, that's phenomenal to have that many in one spot at one time. I just had one, and all those little heads would watch me. And those little heads would turn around and check me out. And I'd be like, oh my God, what am I going to do with these? How do you catch them all and put them back outside? They're very awesome to watch as babies. They're way too cool for words. So it was Denise who said that she saw a wood duckling wandering around through a service station parking lot, and she was able to catch it and took it to TWRC.
Oh, how cool.
I think that is awesome.
It was one of those hot summer days, and this poor little baby duck was trying to hide under cars to get shade for it, to cool off its little webbed feet. So, I was in a full-scale panic by the time, I saw this going on, and I found a nice man who was able to help me herd this little duck into my hands. And I took him home and put him in a box, call the Texas Wildlife Rehab Coalition Center over on Hammerly. And they said, yes, we're going to be open. I think it was until 5. So we had to scurry from the Huffman area all the way over to Hammerly and get this little baby duck in their hands. And that's what we did. It was quite an experience, and so glad I could save that wood duck.
Oh yeah, they are so beautiful. I saw some for the first time at Huntsville, out in nature at Huntsville National Park. I went up with the Adopt a Loop group, and there were wood ducks nesting. Oh, they're just so stunning. So someone else said, when I lived in Florida, a turtle dug and laid her eggs in my driveway. So she just parked somewhere else for a while. Turtles, yeah, I have turtles. I've had the green sliders come up from the coulee behind some houses near me and walk down the road into my yard and lay eggs. And there were 6 babies that yay big that we rescued this year so far, brought them back to the coulee and let them go. Yeah, they're amazing. Jamie Nutt said that tons of fun as a kid catching and releasing armadillos over and over. Maybe not so fun for the armadillos. Jamie, how do you find a bunch of armadillos? I only see them when they're dead on the side of the road. That's pretty amazing.
It was Keachai, Texas.
Oh, you got to live far enough out in the woods to be able to find all those.
Oh yeah, they were everywhere.
Oh my gosh, that is so cool. And baby ones are so amazing.
They
Okay.
are.
So cute. Okay. So,
Carolyn, can you hear me now?
yes, I can hear you, Scott.
Oh my God.
There you
So-
are.
If you don't mind, let me pass along a little information while we close the meeting.
Okay.
One of the things that has occurred already is we warned everybody that the schedule was tentative.
Yeah.
And so the archaeology guy scheduled for next week, Lisa told me will have to be rescheduled for May 1st.
Okay.
On everybody's curriculum, it says we're going to start next Saturday at 8 o'clock. We will start next Saturday at 8:30.
Okay.
I will send a link out tomorrow probably to the group for the invitation for the next session. So for that session, I'll also put some information in there about archaeology, because if you notice, when we get to May 1st, we have sort of a split. One guy was only available on an evening and one guy in the morning. So we'll have to work with those guys to make sure things happen. And with a little luck, I'll actually have my Zoom working by next Saturday, considering I have to fill in for geology. So
Okay. That'd be
if
awesome.
everybody would make a note that next week is not 8 o'clock, but 8:30, I would appreciate it,
Perfect.
and update your syllabus accordingly.
Awesome.
So with that, Carolyn, unless you had anything else for the group, we probably ought to wrap it up.
I think that sounds great. I think I want to thank all of you for showing up today and listening to us talk about all of our passions. And I can't wait for all of you to find and identify your passion in this process. We look forward to seeing you at our next meeting, which Scott will be keeping you abreast of. And we appreciate your time and that you're coming with us on this journey. We really are excited about the class.
Okay, also thank you all. And if you have any questions, you know where the Heartwood Training email address is, you know where Melissa's address is.
Yeah.
And Carolyn's terribly busy, so we never email the Heartwood.
Oh, I love email. I'm at heartwoodpress, PRES @gmail.com. So feel free to drop me a message if you have other questions or if you don't know who to get in touch with. And I can definitely forward your email to whoever needs to see it. Okay?
Yeah,
Well,
same
thank
here.
you so
So
much, guys.
thank you, everybody. Appreciate all the
Thank you,
help. Thank you
Scott.
again, Gwen,
Thank
Melissa.
you, Gwen.
Welcome.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate all of you. I will end meeting now. Oh.